Can the San Francisco 49ers spoil Aaron Rodgers' re-debut for the New York Jets? Can Dak Prescott make an early season case for a mega extension? We talk about that and so much more. The Ultimate NFL Pregame Show starts now.
It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Every team, every game, every angle. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network going head-to-head on every matchup. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Unprecedented insight, unrivaled passion, and unsurpassed knowledge. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. The Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Week 1 in the NFL is here, and we've got everything you need to know heading into the weekend from the local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens and one of the many experts on our network. Today's Ultimate NFL Pregame Show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Week 1 of the NFL season officially here and has already kicked off with 2 games. The Ravens and Chiefs opening up the NFL action on Thursday night, and the Eagles and Packers playing in Brazil on Friday. But plenty of Sunday action to dive into, and we're going to be taking you around our network and around the league as we talk about the predictions, key matchups, and big storylines you need to know. So from the primetime game of Jets 49ers to the big 425 matchup in Cleveland, to why the Steelers can make a big statement over the Falcons, we're going to go game by game to make you the most informed fan for game day. So let's start off in the week 1 slate, the Texans and the Colts kicking off a huge divisional matchup. And we have Jake Arthur and Cody Davis. Jake Arthur locked on Colts, Cody Davis locked on Texans, taking you through everything you need to know. Let's talk about it now.
And Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play 5. Again, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so Cody, I'll go ahead and roll out the red carpet here. What are the 3 most important keys that are going to lead to a Houston Texans victory?
I'm going to start with the most important one that I just finished talking about, the offensive line, keeping the pocket clean and creating gaps for the Houston Texans offense to execute. And talk about the Houston Texans offense to execute. You're looking at C.J. Stroud. You already talked about how questionable the Colts secondary is. So, I think this is a game where C.J. Stroud should just air it out, especially considering that you got not 1, not 2, but 3 wide receivers who could be quote unquote wide receiver, 1. So yeah. I think this is definitely a game where you could just let CJ just go to work. I'm going to love it, I must say. And then, of course, last but not least, but, containing Jonathan Taylor, that's always been the key for the Houston Texans, where it don't matter if they're rebuilding, fighting for a playoff spot, or contending for a championship. They could never figure that key out. So, of course, that key still got to stand. Stop Jonathan Taylor at all costs.
I like it. All right, so for the Colts, first on offense, I'm going to say they got to cash in the red zone, because I mentioned Josh Downs probably not going to play in this one. One that's perhaps even more consequential is their kicker, Matt Gay, is probably not going to play in this one either. Neither player has practiced all week. So kicker, whether we like it or not, it's very important. So if Matt Gay isn't out there kicking, even if he is out there kicking, he just had a hernia procedure. So that's not great. If he doesn't go out there, they have a rookie undrafted free agent and Spencer Schrader kicking. So their kicking game is going to be shaky at best, I would say. So when you're in the red zone, you got to turn those into 6s instead of 3s. Ball security for the offense as well, and that goes towards communication too. So Anthony has a bit of a tendency to know that he's the best athlete on the field, and sometimes that can get him in trouble, especially if you've got a pass rusher breathing down his neck. If he's not holding onto the ball properly, he will fumble it. He has fumbled before last year. He's fumbled in the preseason. He's got to take care of the ball, because, you can't have a 360-degree vision around your head. So just make sure that the ball is fine. But also in terms of communication as well. You mentioned that preseason Bengals game, it didn't look good. But in context, a lot of that was communication between him and the receivers. The pick six, the tight end was supposed to be further inside. Anthony threw it where it was supposed to be, but the tight end wasn't there. We saw that led to a pick six. Immediately 6 points for the other team. That can't happen. There was another crucial third down where he threw over the middle of the field, but it was way in front of A.D. Mitchell. Now, Mitchell, when he came out of his break, there was the defense had a coverage he didn't recognize back there or he wasn't expecting. So it caused him to kind of hitch and hiccup a little bit coming out of his break. That kind of stuff, you just got to keep running through it because Anthony, again, threw it right where it was. So that kind of stuff, they got lucky with an errant throw over the middle of the field that wasn't intercepted. So that stuff has got to get cleaned up. And then defensively, the secondary already, as is, I mentioned, it's going to be a little worrisome. Just be where you need to be. Because we saw a couple of examples in that Week 18 win for the Texans that gave them the AFC South. Obviously, that C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins bomb on the first play of the game. There was supposed to be safety help over the top, but there was no communication there, so the safety was not there. It left the corner on an island with Collins, and that was never supposed to happen. We saw it was a touchdown. And then there was a touchdown to the fullback there, like near the goal line, where there's a breakdown in communication again between the safeties and the cornerbacks. Nobody was right there to pick up that fullback, and he was alone in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. If you're just where you're supposed to, like this game's already hard enough against a quarterback like CJ Stroud. If you just be where you're supposed to be and don't blow the coverages and everything, your life is probably not going to be as difficult. So to me, a lot of it is mental, and then also execution in the red zone on offense for me. So with all that said, do you have a score prediction for us, Cody?
Yeah, I got a score prediction. I think it's still, like normal. It's going to be close, but I got the Houston Texans winning game 1, 21-17.
Okay. So this is a game that could have a lot of offensive fireworks, but it sounds like you think the defenses might step up a little bit.
Yeah, the defense, I can see them stepping up, but again, it's week 1, a lot of quote unquote new faces, with the Houston Texans. I know with you guys, a lot of guys coming back from injury, i.e. the most important one, Anthony Richardson, and I think that's where we're probably going to see like a couple head scratches. And like you mentioned, if anything, it's probably just going to be more so communication type stuff. And, week 1 games sort of, go down that kind of rabbit hole. Now, once again, I think the Houston Texans defense will have an opportunity to hold their own, especially the defensive line in terms of, especially the front seven actually in terms of, trying to contain Jonathan Taylor. But overall, I think it's still going to be a close game because I think it's safe to say that this could be a rivalry, not just CJ and Richardson, but this could be a rivalry between these two franchises that might last a minute. And even though they never liked each other before, I think all the trash talk throughout the offseason rubs some players the wrong way in the Colts locker room. And I think, they're going to come in with an extra chip on their shoulder.
I do think they would like to win. I think this will be a close one as well, but I'm a little more confident in the offenses right now. Both sides have quite a few weapons. I think that'll be tough for Houston to defend. And then obviously I think it's going to be tough for the Colts to defend as well. Houston just has so many weapons. I do have the Texans winning this one, 30-27. Again, a really close one. I mentioned the kicker battle. That's a 3-point game. It could be as simple as a missed field goal somewhere throughout the game. But in general, for the Colts, let's just be optimistic and say that their secondary gets it together at some point in the year. I don't know if week 1 is going to be the time that it happens. So I think the secondary might need a few weeks to gel together. And then will the kicking woes raise their head in this one? Because, even with Matt Gay out there, he has been in a little bit of a slump dating back to late last season. So the Colts, their secondary is very questionable. We have to see them have success before we believe it's going to happen. And then their kicking game has been kind of a very iffy situation, again, dating back to late last season. So one thing I do know, it's going to be an entertaining battle. I think we're all looking forward to the Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud rivalry going on. You know, I know they're friends and they're not on the same field at the same time, but it's going to be really exciting. I mean, that's two young star quarterbacks. We already know CJ Stroud is that dude. He just won Rookie of the Year. Anthony Richardson looked, explosive at times in his 4-game sample size last year. But this does have the makings to be one of the most entertaining rivalries in the NFL.
Should be an exciting matchup, divisional AFC South rivalry between the Colts and the Texans. And for more on Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts and Cody Davis of Locked On Texans, be sure to check out both Locked On Colts and Locked On Texans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's now move to Jacksonville, where the Dolphins will be traveling to another side of Florida to take on the Jaguars in a big game between Tua Tagovailoa and Trevor Lawrence. And we're going to be talking with both Tony Wiggins and Kyle Krabs of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Dolphins, respectively. Can Tua make a statement, or can Trevor Lawrence pick up where he left off? We'll talk about that all now.
Tony, you said it, but before we get there, today's episode of Crossover Thursday is sponsored by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Keys to the game here, Jaguars, Dolphins. Tony, what are the keys for Jacksonville?
Jacksonville has to score touchdowns. Miami can play poorly and have 4 plays and hit 28 points because they're so combustible, so explosive, so sudden. The Jaguars had problems last year in the red zone. We talked about their inability to run the ball, and then it became Trevor versus 11 players and the back line. And a lot of times they had to rely on field goals. And then that was fine until they started missing field goals. They were 8-3 and the offense hadn't played well. That just tells you that everything was hard. Nothing was easy. So I do believe they have to score early. They have to convert a lot of their red zone appearances into touchdowns when they can. You're not going to score a touchdown every single time. But I just believe the Jaguars, when they cross the 40-yard line, have to get more points than they did last year when they had field goal issues. They had down and distance issues. They were turning the ball over on downs because they were going for it on 4th and 6 because they didn't feel confident in Brandon McManus making field goals. That's just for a team that is searching for an identity and searching for something. You can't keep getting to the river and not drinking water. You're just going to the river for no reason, and then you're turning around thirsty. So I think they have to capitalize on their opportunities. And obviously, from a coach speak standpoint, they got to tackle. The game is still about blocking and tackling. And last but not least, they cannot turn the ball over.
Yep. And that's a great place to start for me. I look at this matchup. My 3 keys for Miami is negating Evan Ingram, who became a really good safety blanket. I think with the corners, the Dolphins will have a lot of flexibility as far as how they want to choose to play the matchups. But I look at Ingram and the Dolphins the past few years, it's been a really sore spot trying to defend the middle of the field against tight ends and running backs. And obviously ETN's a piece of that puzzle as well. But when a dude's getting 350 targets last year, Evan Ingram, I mean, he became the security blanket and a guy who, when Trevor needed completions, he found them and he converted those targets into receptions at a very high rate. I think interrupting that while you're playing your matchups with your other players is really essential for Miami. I think Miami getting pressure, untraditional pressure with 4 is important as well. The Anthony Weaver scheme coming over from Baltimore is very well renowned for its pressure being aggressive, but doing so with simulated pressures where they're showing 4 potential rushers, but those aren't the rushers who are coming. And that's why you look at the addition of Jordan Brooks, who they brought in from Seattle, who's a really dynamic former first-round pick at linebacker. He's really good at pressuring from depth. Jalen Ramsey getting back to playing in the nickel. Before he came to Miami and Vic Fangio had him playing exclusively outside corner, he had found this resurgence as a player who could play inside, play in the nickel, move around, play some matchups, but then pressure. And with his length off the edge, he had some really splash plays. We didn't see that from Jalen Ramsey last year. So be ready to drop somebody out in your obvious passing situations. Bring somebody who's away from where you think they're going to turn the center in Mitch Morse. And if you can get those free runners and pressure Trevor, I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. And then the last one was a point of emphasis that Miami has talked about their players and their coaches throughout this offseason, which is controlling the ball. A lot of explosive plays. Like you mentioned, you can really struggle to move the ball, hit a couple of explosive plays, and you look up, you still got 24, 27 points. But for Miami, they want to be more methodical. They want to be more balanced. They don't want to turn around and run their offense back or their defense back out there after a 2-minute scoring drive that wins 70 yards because they hit a 55-yard bomb with consistency. So that doesn't mean you have to sit here 3 yards in a cloud of dust or run into the strength of Jacksonville's front if that's a mismatch that you're not finding success with. But if Jacksonville's going to play off man, find easy completions. Don't get greedy. Make sure you're methodically working the ball down the field and don't make mistakes in those moments that's going to set you behind the sticks or have a turnover as well.
One of the things that scared me when I saw the schedule and I realized we had a coaching change here in Jacksonville on the defensive side of the ball, that was going to be a total schematic change from what we did last year. Last year, they were odd front, had Trayvon Walker and Joshua Hines-Allen. Believe it or not, they led the league as a duo in sacks, but they were dropping in coverage all the time. We got sick of seeing 275-pound dudes back out in the flat, right? So now it's an even front, more traditional. Trayvon's going to be used a little bit better, but this was not the matchup for new team, new scheme. I said it all off season, and somebody asked Doug Peterson yesterday in the press conference, is Miami a good matchup for this new defense? He goes, no, and thank you for reminding me, because with new schemes sometimes comes communication issues.
Mm-hmm.
Have a communication issue against a team that has a track team on the field is like a whole bunch of 80-yard touchdowns. So you could be doing everything right. This is like the wrong team to make a mistake against. And the mistakes sometimes are natural when this is the first live action and you can't really simulate a game in practice. That's going to be the key for me. I don't want, if Jaguar fans see something going wrong and it looks like it's a colossal personnel issue, it probably isn't. It's probably more that everything's new and that this is the wrong team. It's like your first time playing chess and you're sitting down with Bobby Fischer. That's just not good, you know?
It's really interesting because Miami has that same experience with their defense too, with Weaver bringing in a new scheme that's a little bit of a mismatch, or of a mashup, I should say, of what Vic did this past year, Fangio, and then what the Brian Flores, Josh Boyer type scheme was for 3 seasons before that. But there's so much new. I look at, Jacksonville offensively, they got athletes too. So I think this talking point definitely cuts both ways. I think Miami probably in this individual talking point does have the advantage because there's some new receivers for Jacksonville too, whereas a timing-based offense too. This is the first time since high school Tua's had the same offensive scheme for 3 straight seasons, and he's had Waddle and Hill for all of that. So them being the pillar players, as you'd expect, if the Dolphins are going to get it done, those guys are probably going to have a big hand in getting it done.
This game to me is one of the biggest matchups of the week, and I really love the Dolphins this season, so we're going to see how it all plays out. But for more on Tony and Kyle, check them both out over on both Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Dolphins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, Caleb Williams is certainly a big storyline in the NFL, and the number 1 pick will be opening up at home against the Tennessee Titans, where year 2 quarterback Will Levis will be hoping to play spoiler in his NFL debut. Lauren Cox and Tyler Rowland, Locked On Bears, Locked On Titans, will take you through the biggest stories and predictions. Let's talk about it.
It is crossover Thursday on Locked On Bears and Locked On Titans. Lauren Cox and Tyler Rowland here, getting you ready for this week 1 matchup between 2 exciting young teams. Our Crossover Thursday podcast is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our promo code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Tyler, when you look at the 3 most important things the Tennessee Titans have to do to win this game, what stands out for you?
Well, number 1, you have to contain Caleb Williams. You can't let him get outside the pocket. You have to be disciplined in your rush, which is a tough task for Arden Key, who I'm not very high on as a starter for the Titans, who's their edge rusher. He's an undisciplined player, will get upfield and allow the quarterback open lanes to run. If you let Caleb Williams play make on the outside and get space outside to kind of see the field clearly and not be in the pocket, not have to worry about interior pressure, you're going to be in trouble. He's going to make plays. He's going to do what he's been doing his whole life. So the Titans have to contain Caleb Williams. Also, they have to run the ball. I think you got to make it easier on Will Levis in a tough environment with a lot of new pieces and ultimately win the turnover battle. If the Titans lose the turnover battle on the road, they won't win the game. So those are the big three things that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think that's a really quick and easy way to have a winning formula, right? Like, don't, win the turnover margin, run the ball, take care of the quarterback, and keep the other one contained. I think the Bears are going to be looking to do something similar. Like, I think first and foremost, it's about protecting Caleb Williams from that blitz in particular. Like, make sure you have a plan. It's not just, do you have enough blockers to pick up their blitzes, but sometimes they're going to have more guys than you have blockers. So does every single play have a hot route built into it? Do you have the right checks at the line of scrimmage for Caleb Williams? Can you mix in the right combinations of quick throws, screen passes, maybe draw play to get the pass rushers coming up field? Like, it'll be a nice test of the new Bears offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron from the Seattle Seahawks.
Yes.
Like, how well can he adapt his game plan based on what they're expecting from an opponent, albeit a new opponent where we don't have tape on how this Titans defense is exactly going to run. So you take the tape of the Ravens defense, but then the players on the Titans and the tape of what those players do well and kind of
it could be a little different. You know what I mean? Like Denard Wilson has mentioned his influences like Todd Bowles and Greg Williams, these blitz heavy guys. And you add that in a little bit of what Mike McDonald was doing last year with the sim pressures and 3 safety looks and stuff like that. I think the Titans will incorporate all of that. So it is hard to know. One thing I'll also say is the Titans' best rush is from the interior. It's Jeffrey Simmons. They're going to have linebackers blitzing up the middle. If you allow Caleb Williams to get out of the pocket, that interior rush no longer matters. He's out. He's out of the henhouse. It doesn't matter. So if the Titans want to be able to capitalize on their best asset on defense, their interior rush, well, they're going to have to make sure that their outside rush is disciplined and doesn't just leave open the back door so Caleb Williams could get out. It's easy. It's that. Flipping it over, we're both talking about it. You got to run the ball. Will Levis cannot be put. I think the Titans have to lean on play action. The sound. I think Chicago is going to be fired up for this game. Like, it is going to be loud. And the Titans he can't just look at Calvin Ridley and be like, oh, we've seen this coverage pre-snap before. We know what we need to do here. We know what the check is. That stuff is still going to have to be figured out throughout the season. And it's going to be hard to do verbal communication to do that stuff. Brian Callahan was already talking about the fact that, the Titans have been working on their nonverbal communication. They're going to need that in a big way. So running the ball, I think, is going to keep them out of situations where that's absolutely critical and limit the amount of verbal communication that they're going to need while they play in a hostile environment.
And that's the one thing about this Bears defensive line that stands out too, is like we talk about not having a lot of faith in their pass rush. The run defense on the other side is something where, yeah, they don't have the big name talent of guys you might think of as pass rushers, but that group up front is stout and has been effective.
Billings especially, yeah.
Billings is one of the more underrated nose tackles in football. But even I mentioned Jervon Dexter, the second-year man out of Florida, like very raw as a pass rusher, but he's 6'5", 312 and moves really well. Like he's the 3 technique, but he's built like some teams' nose tackles. Like, they are stout in there, and they do a good job of keeping the linebackers free to then be able to attack downhill. And I expect the Titans will have some trouble running the ball against this Bears offense. And then, all right, Will Levis, you said they want to see consistency from him in Tennessee. It's showtime. If you run the ball twice and you have 3rd and 8, all right, go time. Maybe the pass rush isn't going to be all up in your face, but 3rd and 8's not easy to complete in any down and distance. So that's where I think it's going to be a good test for the Titans as well, who the Bears are going to stress them in the ways that they also need to be tested, much like how Caleb's going to be tested in some of the ways he needs as well.
And turnover battle is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you're on the road. Honestly, it doesn't matter what the team. You need to try to win the turnover battle. Turnovers are such a big part of football. So I don't think that needs, some kind of deep dive. What's the keys for the Bears side of things?
Yeah, I think it's about giving Caleb Williams options under center. I think it's about making Will Levis one-dimensional in that same, or making the Titans offense one-dimensional. But then the other thing I want to throw out there is the special teams aspect of this. The Bears need better from their special teams and made it a point this offseason to try and get more out of that unit. They drafted the punter, Torrey Taylor, in the 4th round. And it's about really winning the field position battle here, because I think because it's week 1, because it's new offenses and new players, I think there's going to be some constipation here and there where it's just like for both teams where the offenses are still trying to figure out exactly what they're going to look like. And the Titans blitz will stifle some of what the Bears want to do. And maybe, the Titans offensive line versus the Bears pass rush, I mean, we'll see, but like maybe there's some times when they're not on the same page offensively. And so there's some punting back and forth, and certainly the kick return and the field position battle is going to be a big deal. The Bears have not had the kind of consistency from their return men that they liked. Bayless Jones is going to do kickoffs. DeAndre Carter is going to do punts. They're hoping that, not that somebody's going to return a touchdown in this game, but like, can you avoid muffing those kicks and just not absolutely screwing it up, and at least being able to like play the battle where if we're exchanging 3 and outs, is your punter and your return man helping your team at least advance the ball farther down the field so that your young quarterback doesn't have to go as far against a tough defense as the other team's young quarterback.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And the Titans have done a lot to try to overhaul their special teams from a returner standpoint. And then obviously the coaching staff and getting Ryan Stonehouse back, who's been considered one of the best punters in the league since his rookie year. That'll help as well. The field position battle will be huge. Lauren, I guess it's time. Predictions. I got to tell you, Lauren, I came into the episode thinking a certain way, but after our conversation, I got to tell you, I changed my mind here. I had the Titans losing on the road in week 1, but after our talks and the way you've described the team and some of the things that you're looking for, my mind started saying, rookie quarterbacks in their debut typically do struggle, and there are some advantages here that the Titans could have. So I'm actually going to take the Titans to win this game. I'm going to say 20-17.
I don't blame you. I think this is a game that has a lot of volatility, and we see in week 1 every year, either direction, the results don't always match up what the rest of the season goes, where the Chiefs will lose in week 1 to a bad team and then obviously win the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to end up putting too much stock either way. If the Bears win, it's not going to be me saying, all right, see the proof of concept, they're going to be great all season. If the Bears lose, oh no, they're screwed. It's like, all right, there's a lot of time for things to still figure it out. I do think it's going to end up being a lower scoring game. I was thinking a score similar to you. The Bears are 4.5-point favorites on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. I think that's a pretty good line. I would think that puts the odds around like a 21-17 type of finish. I'm going to go a little bit lower there. I'll say 17-13 Bears. That it ends up staying close this whole time, but both offenses do a little bit more punting than we want to see, and it does become a little bit of an uglier offensive game there. But ultimately, the Bears find the end zone one more time than Tennessee does, and maybe I'll say it's a turnover from the Bears defense that gives them really good field position, and then they get the go ahead sort of score comes off of a big turnover from somebody that might not even necessarily be like Will Levis makes a bad throw, but it's a batted pass at the line of scrimmage that gets tipped up and picked off. Because when the Bears pass rush hasn't been getting home, there have been a lot of batted passes at training camp practices and preseason as well. I think they're going to put one up there up for grabs, and it's up to another player on the defense to take advantage of it, and that can be the difference in this game.
A very anticipated debut for Caleb Williams, but of course the Titans looking to play spoiler. For more on Tyler and Lauren, be sure to check out Locked On Titans and Locked On Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A lot of great action in the 1 p.m. window, but coming up, we're going to have some late window action for you, including the big matchup of late afternoon, Browns, Cowboys, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, a lot to dive into with that matchup. But let's stick with the 1 p.m. games. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a whole new quarterback situation. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields come in. They're going to be facing off against a new-look Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins now at the helm for them. Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons. We'll get into everything you need to know about that matchup now.
So Aaron Freeman here of Locked On Falcons, joined by Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers. Talk keys to victory on a crossover Thursday episode, both Locked On Falcons and Locked On Steelers. And that is, of course, presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So talking keys to victory, Chris, what are like the 3 most important things for the Steelers to do in order to walk away from week 1 with a win?
For one, the Steelers have to take away Bijan Robinson, who I think is a major part of this Falcons offense if they want to make it work this year. Kyle Pitts is certainly a threat. Drake London's certainly a threat. But if they can take away Bijan Robinson and force Kirk Cousins to be one-dimensional in this game. And I know that sounds very boring to people who listen to Keys to the Game, but that is very much who the Steelers are. The Steelers are not some new age team that's coming at you and trying to say, oh, if we take this over here, the passing game is going to work. No, they are very much old school. Stuff the run so they can rush the quarterback. That is their plan. So if Bijan Robinson is getting loose, guess what? Steelers are in trouble because that's the whole crux of their defense. But their defensive front has been relied upon, has been invested into, and they're relying upon this year to be much better than it was last year. Cam Hayward was hurt all last year. Larry Ogunjobi was hurt all last year. They were down to practice squad linebackers for most of last year. This year, they've gotten a whole new crew of guys, and both Ogunjobi and Hayward seem very healthy going into the early part of this year. They're much more confident stuffing their run. So I think that's key number one. Stuff Bijan Robinson, get after that. Number two is, I wouldn't say win the line of scrimmage, neutralize the line of scrimmage on offense. Make it about Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and the Steelers playmakers out of the backfield. You do that, it allows the Steelers on offense to do what they hope to limit the Falcons from doing, and that's have a balanced attack. They're not going to ask Russell Wilson to throw 50 times in this game unless they're down by a lot of points. They're asking Russell Wilson to say, hey, throw 25 to 30 times, and don't have most of them have to be from 2nd and 8, because they're hoping that the Steelers run game can at least get 3, 4, 5 yards on first downs most of the time, and then set up 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, getting more of those situations so Russell Wilson can take advantage of more of those spots, move the sticks on most occasions, maybe make big plays on some of those occasions. Those are those things that I think the Steelers are looking for at the line of scrimmage. And those are very basic things, but I think that's certainly a part of it. But part of it for me also, and this is my third big key, is getting Kirk Cousins to make mistakes. Now, the last 2 times the Steelers have played Kirk Cousins, they have forced him to throw 2 interceptions both of those occasions. One of those games they won because they were able to dominate the rest of the field, and they were able to, when he was with what are the Commanders now, used to be a different team in Washington. They dominated that game, got him to throw 2 picks, and that was how they won that game. The last time they played, though, was when he was with the Minnesota Vikings, and he threw 2 interceptions then. But the difference was they allowed Dalvin Cook to run for 200 yards and get 2 touchdowns. That is why, again, they can't allow Bijan Robinson to do that. So if they stop Bijan Robinson, they still have to be the turnover demons that they expect to be this year being a top defense. So that's why that's my third key. Key 1, stop the run. Key 2, neutralize the line of scrimmage enough so that Najee Harris and the run game can be solid. And it's about the playmakers, less about the offensive line. And then, of course, when you force Kirk Cousins to be one-dimensional, make him pay and create the turnovers.
Yeah, I think those are all great keys to victory for the Steelers. And, a couple of those mirror kind of what I think the keys to victory for the Falcons. 1, I think, is stopping the run. 2, keep Kirk upright. And 3, generate some explosive plays. Talking about stopping the run, yeah, it is basic, but football is a pretty basic sport. And, we know Arthur Smith tends, from his days in Atlanta, he tends to be a little bit conservative with his play call. He's going to run the ball on early downs. You want to make Pittsburgh one-dimensional. As you said, Russell Wilson does, the goal is not to have Russell Wilson drop back and throw the ball 40, 50 times. And if you're the Falcons, you want Pittsburgh to play that way because that's playing left-handed from their perspective. And if you can get those stops on early downs, put them in some 3rd and longs, hopefully this Falcons pass rush with Matthew Judon, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata can take advantage of maybe some of the question marks that the Steelers have up front on their offensive line. And it's kind of the opposite thing with keeping Kirk upright, right? The biggest strength of the Steelers, we just talked about it, is their front, right? That's got to be neutralized or contained. J.J. Watt is going to get doubled and chipped, but that's going to lead to a lot of one-on-ones for the other Steelers rushers. And as Chris broke down earlier, those other guys know how to eat when it is served to them. And there's been a lot of hype for the Falcons offensive line. And to me, they have to go out there and prove that they can hold up against this Steelers front. And then that third thing, generating explosive plays. The Steelers gave up the second least number of 10-plus yard scoring drives last season, right? Matriculating the ball down the field against them is not going to work. I'll tell you that. But getting explosive plays, they did give up a lot of explosive plays last year. You saw that in that Rams game last year, where a lot of those came from Puka Nacua. And the player that the Falcons are expecting to kind of fill the Puka Nacua role in this Falcons offense this year is Drake London. So if they can get him going, the offensive line can keep Kirk upright, get him the time to find Drake London on those crossers and those dig routes and all those things that Zach Robinson is going to port over from his days in LA. That can be a big part, and that's going to allow the Falcons to score enough points so that it's going to make the Steelers play from behind, which is the way that they don't want to play. They want to have that lead and pound the rock. So I think those are kind of the three keys to victory. As you said, they're boring. We'll probably be repeating a bunch of these in the upcoming weeks throughout the season, but that's just kind of how football is. You just got to do the basic fundamental things. And if you do those things effectively, you will be put in a position to win football games.
And again, I think this paints the parallel picture between these two teams right now. Whereas, yes, the head coaches are old and young, but you look at new quarterbacks, you look at teams that are trying to win with these new quarterbacks in the ways that specialize to how the rest of their personnel lines up. It adds up to me to be teams that are trying to win in very classic ways of football because they don't have the supreme superstar quarterbacks. But I also think that there's teams that have shown you don't need the supreme superstar quarterbacks to be really good in this league. Look at the Lions last year with Jared Goff. There's team. Look at the Niners with Brock Purdy. You don't necessarily need now. Certainly, having Patrick Mahomes doesn't hurt, right? like no one's saying that you can just win the Super Bowl without a quarterback. But there are ways to be among the best teams in the NFL when you don't have one, and that's where both of these teams are trying to achieve. I think it will be a battle of wills to see who achieves it the best Sunday, 1:00 in Atlanta.
Absolutely, and the Steelers have dominated that will competition over the 60 years that they've been playing the Falcons. I think this is the most lopsided matchup probably in NFL history for teams that have existed for as long as these two teams, where the Steelers are 15-2-1 against the Falcons all time. So I'm hoping maybe we'll get a third win from the Falcons in not in my lifetime, the second one in my lifetime, but a third one in probably anybody else's on the planet's lifetime.
The Falcons are retooled, but so are the Steelers. So that should be a really interesting and exciting game. And for more on both Chris and Aaron, check them out over at Locked On Steelers and at Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's take it to Cincinnati. The Patriots, now with no Bill Belichick, they are going to be entering a new era with Gerard Mayo as their head coach. Joe Burrow back from an injury in Cincinnati. We'll get into if the Bengals and Patriots can make a statement against one another. Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, Jake Lisco, and James Rapine of Locked On Bengals have it covered here now.
Let's discuss keys to victory as the Cincinnati Bengals take on the New England Patriots in Cincinnati in Week 1 of the 2024 NFL season, and Crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Check it out at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and with promo code LockedOnNFL, you will win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win that $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Mike, let's start from the New England Patriots perspective. What needs to go right for the Patriots to win this game?
Well, they have to establish the run first and foremost, and I think we've pretty much covered the reasons why. The Patriots are dealing with a makeshift offensive line, a quarterback right now that is trying to manage the game, keep his players healthy, and try to move the ball and navigate the field. And you're also dealing with a situation where the Patriots are trying to incorporate the run to utilize their strengths. So that's going to be a key. If they cannot establish the run, Patriots are going to have a very difficult time winning this game or even remaining competitive in this game. The second is to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Establishing the run on offense is part of that, but the Patriots also need to try to keep the ball in the hands of the Cincinnati running backs. As much as you guys have said that the Cincinnati running game has improved, and it definitely has, it's a huge challenge for the Patriots. If Joe Burrow starts to tee off on the secondary, which Patriots fans are hoping is the strength of this defense, again, a long day in the Queen City for New England. And the last is going to require some skill, but it's going to require a little bit of luck as well. The Patriots try to have to force turnovers or capitalize on a turnover, get a big play, and be able to make something happen downfield. If they can do all three of those, they have a puncher's chance in this game. If any one of those falters, again, it's going to be a very difficult road to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who I believe are stronger in all three phases right now.
Yeah, I think it's fair, and it's going to go hand in hand with the Bengals keys. If the Bengals are going to win this game, we'll start on defense, because who wants to start with Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase, right? We'll bury the lead a bit. And they have to slow down the run. You can't let Ramondre Stevenson run all over you. If there is the blueprint, it's that. It's given Jacoby Brissett this lifeline where he can rely on the running game and then make plays because he's a veteran quarterback against a young secondary. Dax Hill's going to make his first career start at outside cornerback, where they're really banking on him to play. Now, he's played outside corner a little bit, but not really as a rookie. It doesn't count. I saw Jake there. But so we'll see. And that's a question mark. But to me, the run part of it is the major factor and the biggest question. And then 2, it's going to be Joe Burrow. Healthy Joe Burrow can win this game without Jamar Chase. As big of a storyline as Jamar Chase is Jamar's wrist 100%. He said he's feeling great, but even he didn't say 100%, because I think he wants to go out there, get hit, pop up, all of the things that come back from the injury. At the same time, he said he's bigger, stronger, faster than he's ever been. The arm's feeling great. All of those things. He just didn't use the words 100%. So maybe we will see that on Sunday. Healthy Joe Burrow goes a long way. And then, and I get it, no Barmore, no Matt Judon, but I think it would be weird if we weren't talking about the offensive line for this Cincinnati Bengals unit, just because it's been such a talking point. You mentioned Trent Brown and your confidence in him. I think Bengals fans will love hearing that, because they haven't seen or heard a lot of him practicing this camp. And I think the Bengals did that by design to get him to week 1. So he is ready to go because of the health questions and all of those things that he's dealt with throughout his career. And so we'll see on Sunday, but that is a question mark. Will this offensive line, Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, Trent Brown at right tackle, 3 now veterans with Volson, Kaplan, Karras in the middle, will they be able to protect Joe Burrow and be the best unit he's had? We'll get the first glance of it, first look of it on Sunday.
Very well said. That is a tactic, and I think that has been used and employed here in New England when it comes to Trent Brown. So very astute observation, James. That's something to keep an eye on for Bengals fans.
I think it's interesting how these keys to the game really do go hand in hand. I mean, sometimes we talk about things that are not necessarily directly clashing when we do these shows, when we do these crossovers. We don't always say the Patriots obviously need to run the ball. The Bengals obviously need to defend the run. It's not always so clear cut, but it really does in so many ways come down to that is a weakness on the Bengals team that the Patriots can use to get their whole offense going. And if they don't get it going, like I said in the first segment of our show today, if Jacoby Brissett is drop back passing and the Patriots are down 10 points or something in the second half, that's really not where you want to be. When you can't threaten play action, when you can't threaten the run, when Trey Hendrickson and Sheldon Rankins, the penetrating prize addition for the Bengals to help replace some of DJ Reader's snaps and production from last offseason, can pin their ears back along with potentially Joseph Osai, Sam Hubbard, and BJ Hill. That would be a place where I'd be feeling really confident as a Bengals fan. And on the other side of things, if the running game is successful for the Patriots, how much does that unlock the play action, deep shot kind of stuff, the sudden change stuff? And you talked about turnovers as well. I often talk about week 1 weirdness, Mike. And I think we could agree that the expected outcome of this game is that the Bengals win. At least a few months ago, and I see that the line has changed since then, this was the biggest line in week 1. I'm not sure what exactly it is today, but it was double digits a while ago. And then the Jamar Chase stuff happened, and Joe Burrow's wrist still has some questions as he refuses to affirm that he is, in fact, 100%, despite feeling, according to him, the best he's felt going into a season. But the way that this goes off the rails to me is, like you've talked about, the sudden change kind of plays, those deep shots off of play action, if those are available to the Patriots, and then the turnovers can really make things fluky. And we see some weird stuff happen in week 1 sometimes. So those are the things on my radar when I'm thinking about how these keys all fit together as we talk about how this game might go.
Well, if Stevenson gets going, then Javon Baker may get over the top on Dax Hill on that one, or on DJ Turner on that one, because you have these questions on that one play, and then suddenly you're looking up, and if the Patriots have the lead, you have some uneasiness in the crowd in the third quarter. Like, you could see it. You can certainly see the path to it. There's just a lot of things I feel like that need to happen for that to be the case.
Yeah, without a question. And a lot would need to go the Patriots' way. And once again, you've mentioned that the Patriots have the talent to be able to make plays happen. They've got guys capable of doing that. Demario Douglas was one of their biggest playmakers last year. He's coming off a good season and has had a very good spring and a very good summer and again, a good preseason. So he's a name to watch on Sunday as well. So the Patriots can start making things happen a little bit and get a rhythm going on offense. Their defense can set. And then you're talking about a cornerback room that features Jonathan Jones, the veteran, that features Christian Gonzalez, the exciting second-year rookie. And I say second-year rookie because he didn't have much of a sample size in his rookie season. And Marcus Jones coming back and being in the slot, someone who's very speedy and capable of making plays when he needs to. It's going to be an exciting game, I think, on Sunday for both sides.
A lot to be looking forward to in that matchup in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow coming back from his injury. Big statement potentially to be made by Cincinnati there. For more on the Patriots and the Bengals, be sure to check out Mike Debate at Locked On Patriots, Jake Lisco and James Rapine at Locked On Bengals, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Buffalo Bills are undergoing a bit of a transformation as they get rid of a lot of their veterans. The Arizona Cardinals, after drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair up with Kyler Murray, are looking for a fast start. And for Alex Clancy and for Joe Marino, they talk about the game and what to look out for. So let's talk about that now.
All right, folks, it's Crossover Thursday here, presented by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Be sure to go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. I'm Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills, joined by Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. And we got to discuss the path to victory. What are the important things for each team to do to win the game? Now, the Bills are favorites in this game at home, but I think there's always a path for any team to win in the NFL. What's the keys in your mind for Arizona to come in and spoil week one for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, the three keys for the Cardinals: one, run the ball effectively. The best defense the Arizona Cardinals have in 2024 is their ability to run the ball. Eat clock, keep Josh Allen on the sidelines. Number two, touchdowns, not field goals. On the road, harsh environment for the Cardinals. Orchard Park is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. If the Cardinals get in the red zone, they cannot settle for three. They must execute and score touchdowns. And number three, keep Josh Allen in front of you. It's the lesser of two evils. If Josh Allen runs roughshod, 10 carries, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns like he's very well equipped to do, especially when plays break down, that is nightmare fuel for the Cardinals. You will take him throwing the ball down the field to a wide receiver room that's never played together, anchored potentially by a rookie. You take that and trust Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker over the top to make plays, and you just keep Josh Allen in front of you.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out on the run component. We talked about Arizona was a 5 yards per carry they averaged last year, number one in the NFL. Well, the Bills, 28th in the NFL in yards per attempt allowed against the run. And I think there's some context that needs to be applied to that as with every stat. But I think the reality is the Bills' run defense is prone to giving up some explosive plays. Now, I think in certain matchups against running backs where they're going to feed them, I think the Bills will, kind of really come in with a game plan to stop it. But there's just these moments where they give up long runs. And I feel like Arizona is going to certainly try to exploit that. And I think that was a good call out for you as one of your keys. Because for me, Alex, when I think about the Bills side of things and what the Bills need to do to win this football game, the number one thing that I put down was stop the run. And they'll be tested. They'll be tested with their ability to fit and be firm, because that's Arizona's plan. They want to come in and shorten the game and control the clock and keep Josh Allen on the sideline. The way to do that is sustain drives and pound the rock. And so I think that's a good call out. You also mentioned the red zone scoring touchdowns, right? And not settling for field goals. The Bills' red zone defense last year was a concern, 19th in the NFL. Giving up a touchdown 56% of the time. So that's definitely an area of the team where you're looking for them to make some improvements. So I feel like, I think you were spot on with a lot of your ideas there in terms of what it's going to take for Arizona to come in and get an upset win.
It's something that the Cardinals have struggled with through the last regime touchdowns, not field goals, not touchdowns, running the ball and dedicating to the run. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Buffalo does. And with that, coupled with that, the range of Drew Petzing's true offense with talent in it is if the Bills stack the box, are the Cardinals going to be able to eat on the outside with Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the rest of the wide receivers? Or if the box is a little bit lighter, are the Cardinals going to be able to effectively run the ball? Like that's going to be a test throughout the entirety of the season. And it starts, week one where the Cardinals, this isn't going to be a game where they're going to lose by 100 and you hope they stay close. If they play their game properly, it could be a one-possession game with a couple minutes to play.
My keys, Alex, for Buffalo to win in week one. Well, I kind of spoiled the first one. Stop the run. Yeah. You know what Arizona wants to do. And so again, a unique run scheme, fit the run. I think tackling is going to be important. I think the Bills have been kind of hit or miss with their consistency as a tackling defense. So when you get a chance to bring guys down, you got to bring them down. You got to fit the run. You got to play the run. So I think that's really critical. Number one. Number two is your star quarterback, Josh Allen, needs to maximize his opportunities against a suspect defense. And I think Arizona's on a really good path. I've said that. I like Monty Ossenford. I like how he's manipulating things. I really do. He just doesn't have the dudes on defense yet. Yeah. And when you have Josh Allen, you could talk about turnovers and wide receiver rooms and all that stuff. Josh Allen is one of the premier quarterbacks in the entire NFL. This is an opportunity at home against a defense that you feel like is going to be a little bit leaky, that doesn't have the rush. Like your guy, 17 for the Bills, has got to go out and make a ton of plays. And I feel like he's going to be up for the task. And number three is don't beat yourself. I think that's whenever I see the Bills kind of have a letdown game, it's because they beat themselves with turnovers, with defensive breakdowns, with special teams. And Josh Allen, obviously an MVP candidate. And I think sometimes you get the worst of Josh Allen when he wants to go into a game and really put on a show. Sometimes it's okay to just do the smart right thing with the football. And like you said earlier in the episode, be a little bit boring. And I think that's winning at times. And so for Josh Allen, threading the needle between, okay, I'm dynamic, I can do anything that I want to. Oh, but also sometimes it's okay to just do the smart right thing with the football. Defensive breakdowns I put down in here. We talked about Dorian Williams stepping in, the new safety tandem. Don't be leaky. Don't be leaky with your defense and allow explosive plays to happen for Arizona. That's going to, allow them to have momentum shifting plays. And then lastly is the special teams. And what this really comes down to is the Bills kicker, Tyler Bass. I think a lot of people remember him missing that field goal against Kansas City in the divisional round that could have tied the game. He missed it, but that was a stretch really since about week 7 last year where he was very, very inconsistent. And that's continued throughout training camp. And so if you have to lean on that guy to make a kick, you're very concerned about it. And of course, special teams in general this year with the new kickoff rule, I think the teams that are able to figure it out are going to have a very competitive advantage. And so those types of margins, I think, are going to be really critical every week and especially in week one.
Yeah. You look at Josh Allen, Josh Allen's personification is somebody swinging a golf club too hard, trying to hit it further when all you have to do is Freddie Couples it and just hit it smooth. And it usually goes straight and you hit it longer than you think. So yeah, Josh Allen, being able to frustrate Josh Allen in some form or fashion is probably number one on the list on the grease board in the locker room for Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. That's it. If they can turn the ball over a couple times, if they can turn the ball over once, it could be enough to swing the pendulum enough for the Cardinals to get a dub on Sunday. It could, it's when it is, where it is on the field. If he drops the ball, if he drops it on the ground and the Cardinals recover it, if he throws a pick, whether it's tipped or otherwise, that's going to be the best way for the Cardinals to stay in this game, hoping that Josh Allen tries to do too much, which he's done at times. He gets away with it because he's an elite athlete, but that's something that hopefully the Cardinals can get lucky. And if they do want to get a win here, I agree with you with stopping the run. I think that's, again, this is something I've stated all year. The best defense, that's the only defense the Cardinals really have, is being able to keep the offense on the field. That's it. The best defense against Josh Allen is when he's sitting on the sideline drinking a Gatorade. And if the Cardinals can stay on the field at least for half the game, they just can't be, on the field for 26 minutes. It's like the Richter scale. Every minute is massive that your offense isn't on the field. And if the Cardinals can stay around the 30, 31, 32 minute mark, they will be in this game in the fourth quarter.
We'll see if Josh Allen can start a potential MVP campaign early against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals will certainly not back down. Be sure to check out Alex Clancy over at Locked On Cardinals and Joe Marino over at Locked On Bills, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's take it down to New Orleans, where the Panthers and Saints will be kicking off the season with an NFC South bout. Bryce Young entering his second season after a somewhat disappointing first year. New situation, new head coach for Bryce Young and the Saints with Derek Carr for his second year in New Orleans. Some questions on the direction of the Saints. So Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, Julian Council of Locked On Panthers will be taking you through that now.
All right, y'all, wrapping up this crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Saints, breaking down everything you need to know ahead of the Carolina Panthers at New Orleans Saints in that humid dome, as Julian mentioned. We're going to be diving in throughout all that. Make sure you come back on our Friday episodes as well, as we're take a deep dive, one more deep dive ahead of the game over on Locked On Panthers as well as Locked On Saints, so you can continue to keep up with everything going on with your teams before they kick off their 2024 season. I love the way that you said it the other day, Julian, on your show. You said when toe meets leather. I think I've said that probably 6 or 7 times after you said that. Probably one of my favorite football phrases I think that I've ever heard. So thank you for that. And I think you've got more really good football phrases for us when it comes to the things that need to happen for the Carolina Panthers to get a win, because it feels like it's kind of the fundamental stuff.
Yeah, and that's what Dave Canales has said from day one. Get the football right. Don't have 8 false starts in a game like they did last year at Seattle. Don't turn the football over. Be able to actually complete a forward pass. But first, what you got to do is you got to protect the quarterback. And then the receiver has to be able to get open. Then he's got to catch the ball. Then he's got to run.
So many good football phrases.
And be able to get yardage. Like, those are the simple, fundamental things. And I asked my listeners this on Twitter at Julian Council. There's your shameless plug. If you call it X, I guess you can follow me there too, but it's the same thing. Put in twitter.com, what pops up, Twitter. But I asked people, like, what are your realistic expectations for the Panthers this year? Most people were saying about like 6-7 wins. And then the common theme I heard was competence. Be competent. That's their expectation. So what I need to see from the Panthers for them to win on Sunday is be competent. What does that look like? Being able to stay on schedule on offense. I don't like the idea of this passing offense being in 3rd and long. I still need to see a lot out of Bryce Young, out of the offensive line's ability to protect, as again, we have not seen them together in this kind of setting yet. And I still got to see the receivers. I think Deontay Johnson can be good for them this season, but it's been a couple years. I think because of Kenny Pickett not being good, Mr. Trubisky not being good, Mason Rudolph being a little bit better last year, but still not being good. That's probably been a big reason why Deontay Johnson was upset in Pittsburgh and is now here in Carolina. And I think he's a better player when he's shown the last couple of years. So I still have a lot of questions about the pass game overall. So stay on schedule by being able to run the football, which is what Canales wants to do. He says they want to be stubborn about running the ball. That's what they have to do. And like defensively, they got to stop the run. Last year, first 6 games, gave up 130 yards plus each time. And Kamara's the kind of back who can burn them by in that run game. They were 31st against the run according to EPA last year, and that has to improve. I think with Clowney coming in, replacing Burns, who was low-key bad at setting the edge, that helps him. Having Shaq Thompson back, who broke his leg in this game on Monday night last year, that helps. Josie Jewell as well, who already understands the scheme from his one season spent with the Panthers coordinator Rogero Rivero out in Denver a couple of years ago. A'Shawn Robinson, better than Deshaun Williams. They should be able to, that's what they got to do, stop the run, and then find a way to get off the field, man, on 3rd down. I have concerns about the pass rush. I don't have concern about J.C. Horn when he plays. He's got to play. But there's still questions at the other corner spot. As Dane Jackson, there was going to be questions about him anyways, but he's on injury reserve for the first 4 weeks with a hamstring. So they traded for Mike Jackson from Seattle right before cut down day. He's been more of a rotational player. He's been better in that spot than as a starter. They brought in a bunch of dudes off the waiver wire who I have personally never heard of, who are maybe have to play on Sunday. So let's see what's opposite of JC and if they can get off the field, because that was a big problem they've had in years past with him not being healthy and just the overall talent level at that corner spot.
Yeah, that's big, especially with the matchup here. Let me ask one thing. You talked about like competence. You talked about the run game. In my opinion, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but in my opinion, one of the competent things that Carolina can do is turn their run game over to Chuba Hubbard. Is that the plan?
Yeah, the plan is to. This is what I always tell people when it comes to running backs. You pay them federal minimum wage, no overtime, no holiday pay, none of that. You use them, abuse them, then lose them. Chuba Hubbard's in his last year of his rookie deal. The plan is to run him into the ground. Miles Sanders, he has an out in his contract after this season. The plan is to run him into the ground. Like Jonathan Brooks, I don't know when we're going to see him. The rookie running back out of Texas, who's currently on the non-football injury list after tearing his ACL last November at UT. I don't know when we're going to see him. I don't even know if we need to see him because the Panthers have a capable back in Chuba Hubbard who had 900 rushing yards last year and took the number one job after Miles Sanders struggled to get out the gates, just like the entire team. But I think Chuba can be really good for them this year. So they're going to lean on that run game, want to run some play action, and really take some pressure off of Bryce. And Canales talked about all we need Bryce to do is play his 111. Now, you're going to need to do a little bit more than that to justify giving all that up, including DJ Moore last year.
Right.
But I understand what Dave is trying to say.
Yeah, makes sense. Good. I think that run game leaning a little bit more on Chuba Hubbard, I think is a smart idea. Certainly, it looked like that towards the end of the season last year. And the last time that these two teams met back in December, I think December 10th, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders combined for 161 rushing yards. Now, that didn't lead to points on the board for Carolina, but it was huge in terms of keeping things going. And maybe that's the difference this year, because the Saints, I think it helps me transition a little bit to things I think need to go right. One of the big things that they got to get right is defending the run. Number 22 in the NFL last year. They did not take the steps forward that they wanted to last year. They have to be able to get back there and stop the run. That's got to be number one. The other thing for me is actually using Taysom Hill. I mean, the dude has been one of the best playmakers on the team and has barely seen the dang field for them. There were games, Julian, where he would have he would contribute 3 touchdowns and everything, 3 scores, and then the next 2 games see the field for single digits in each game. There's just no reason for that. And so I think that's a big one for me. The
best tweet I saw on Tuesday, or maybe it was Wednesday, was Catherine Terrell of ESPN.com, the Saints reporter, saying, "Breaking, Taysom Hill's back at tight end." This. Hey, they keep trying to make Taysom Hill happen. He's still in the league. He's gonna have 10 years. The guy's gonna get retirement from playing football. Good for him. But
I love it, man. Funny. And I'm so glad that they changed his position designation for the fantasy aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is that he's still going to take snaps at quarterback. He's still going to take snaps at tight end. He's still going to be a returner. He's still going to cover on special teams. And now he's taking snaps out of the backfield, Julian, as a fullback and as a tailback. So just give him everything, but just keep him on the field. I mean, just give him the opportunity to go out there and make plays. I think that's one of the things that has stabbed them in the back over and over again, is that they haven't made that commitment to one of their best playmakers. And the final thing for me that goes kind of both ways is getting their passing game going. And as you alluded to, not allowing Carolina's passing game to manufacture in front of them. I mean, they have one of the deepest cornerback rooms in the NFL, one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Jordan Howden, the young second-year safety, is listed as the starter next to Tyrann Mathieu. I still have my suspicions that it will actually be veteran and former Detroit Lion Will Harris lining up there. We'll see if I'm right or wrong on that. But I think that secondary has a lot of talent, and that Carolina receiving room at the very least is trying to figure out what talent it has. So the Saints can't let them figure that out in this game. Let them figure that out week 2. Don't let them figure it out week 1. And then for the other side of it is taking advantage of what is a still kind of shaky secondary for Carolina, I imagine, with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, getting Cedric Wilson involved, all that. And that's got to mean a good game from Derek Carr as well. So those are kind of the 3 big things for me: passing game and limiting, all that kind of stuff.
There is one more factor that we need to discuss. It's the factor of a revenge game. London Johnson Jr. is now a Carolina Panther, and
he is not happy with the New Orleans Saints.
He is not. When reports came out last week from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero that the Panthers were planning on signing Lonnie Johnson Jr. to the practice squad and then elevating him for week 1, he came out and said, "New Orleans, I love you. The front office, we got beef." So let's just see if Lonnie Johnson Jr. has the game of his life on Sunday, turns things around, and is able to help the Panthers win there in New Orleans. So I'm just going to throw that one out there. You heard it here first. If it happens, if it doesn't happen, I ain't
You
saying
never
anything
heard
at
it.
all.
He never said anything at all.
Yeah, we're still trying to find the guy who said Lonnie Johnson Jr. was going to ball out. It would have been me.
Where'd he go? Where's that guy? Oh man, I love that. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a talented dude. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's a talented dude. He actually looked good here in New Orleans. There was belief in terms of like what he could be here and everything, and then dealt with the injury and all that, and then whatever happened with those return negotiations, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens revenge game wise.
Ross and Julian are great, and the Saints-Panthers matchup has potential to be great as well. It's one of my underrated matchups of the week, to be honest. And be sure to check out Ross Jackson over at Locked On Saints, Julian Council over at Locked On Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more early game to go. Then we'll be kicking it off to the late window that, again, includes Cowboys, Browns, Raiders, Chargers, and a lot of other matchups. But Vikings and Giants, two teams that are certainly going through some level of issues. The Giants with Daniel Jones, is this the last year for him there? The Vikings lose J.J. McCarthy for the year, so Sam Darnold at the helm for them. Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants, take you through what you need to know for that matchup coming up here.
All right, everybody, welcome back to this special crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Vikings, brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. And in this segment, Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, and myself, Patricia Traina, host of Locked On Giants, we're going to give you our keys to victory for our respective teams. And Luke, since the Vikings are the visitors, you go first. What are the keys, the 3 keys the Vikings have to accomplish if they're to emerge with a win?
I think the best way to do it is to make Daniel Jones fall apart. As you have alluded to in camp, if you can get him rattled, and they're going to send the world at him all the time, right? So if you can get him rattled enough to either totally shrink down into a 2 yards a pop kind of, check downs only offense, or force, run through his patience and get him to start forcing the issue and making mistakes, I think that's the best way to do this. Generate turnovers, generate chaos. Keep them from that Malik Neighbors go ball down the sideline against a corner that, hasn't been good in 3 years. Keep that out of there by getting so much pressure on them that they can't throw a 30-yard pass because they don't have time to wait for it to develop. They can't do deep downfield concepts that are going to attack some of the zone coverages they'll see there. That pressure is going to be everything. And if they're going to win, that means they're going to have to immediately get like the defensive line. It's optimistic because they did quite a lot. They spent a first round pick. They spent the most money on D-line in free agency versus any other position. They went hard at their D-line, but we have to see proof of concept now. And if the Giants O-line is a question mark, then it's like, okay, if you can't get pressure on these guys, then we got a big problem. If that's going to be the mismatch, so they have to take so much advantage of the mismatch that's in their favor that the Giants can't take advantage of the mismatches that aren't in their favor. That's got to be the key. But what do you think? I that's only on one side of the ball, of course. How are the Giants going to approach this game as underdogs at home? By the way, which I think is interesting. This might be one of the only games all year that the Vikings are favored, and I honestly didn't even expect them to be. So how will the Giants approach this game in a way that gives them the best chance to win?
Well, I think obviously they're going to want to get pressure on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold typically, like most quarterbacks, doesn't respond well to pressure. Last year, I believe he was when he was under pressure, I think he completed 50% of his pass attempts.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned,
in the one game he played, I think that
something like that. So like I mentioned in the previous segment, if they can get home with the front 7 and not have to do these fancy blitzes and crazy things that Wink Martindale used to do, that's going to be key because Darnold is mistake prone. So that's probably number 1. Number 2, obviously, take care of Justin Jefferson. Get him to where you're not going to necessarily stop him, but if you can neutralize him to where he doesn't have, fantasy football type numbers on you, that's going to be absolutely key, I think, for the Giants. And as I mentioned in the last segment, that defensive secondary worries me. Even with the addition of Adoree Jackson, who we don't know if he's going to be ready to play 60 snaps plus, that defensive secondary, until I see a better showing. And I saw them against the Jets in the joint practice and against the Jets also in the preseason game. And I'm still squeamish about it. I'm not going to lie. And then, of course, the other side of the ball for the Giants, Daniel Jones, he's got to play a clean game. The Giants are I think, winless since 2022 when they have turned the ball over more than 2 times. So they've got to make sure that they don't hurt themselves. The Giants, it's interesting. Last year, they could not get off to a fast start if their lives depended on it. They were like minus 100 by the time, halftime came around. So, they were being outscored. So they've got to get off to a fast start. They can't leave points on the board. They can't leave yards on the field. Play a clean, efficient game. Now different this year. Brian Dable is going to be calling the plays for the Giants. So we'll see. He's a little bit, no disrespect to Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator and the play caller the last 2 years, but Brian Dable's a little bit more creative. That's one of the reasons why the Giants hired him. So we'll see how he mixes it up. And of course, Dable leans heavily, at least based on what he did in Buffalo, more of a fan of the pass than the run game. The run game gets sprinkled in, but the passing game is going to really be the key.
Yeah, it's more Billsy Brian Dable instead of, okay, our best players are running back. We have to design things around that. Okay, there's 2 things that I think we should touch on that we haven't yet. The first, this is very important. I said it last time I was on your show. The Century Red uniforms are great. I'm glad that I get to watch them. Everybody else is wrong. They rock. And especially with the red logo in the middle of the field, that's going to work really well. That aesthetic is very sick. The Giants should be very happy with it. I say this without a shred of sarcasm or irony. I think it is really great looking. I love the vintage throwback stuff. I love it. So I'm actually excited for the aesthetic of this game. The serious point though. We haven't talked about Dexter Lawrence yet and the problems that he caused the last time the Vikings met the Giants, which was in the playoffs. Obviously, the defensive side of the ball was so bad, a dude got fired, and arguably the Giants completely overestimated their offense and committed to Daniel Jones. So that was an issue. But on the Vikings offensive side of the ball, maybe the difference that prevented them from being able to keep up with all the scoring the Giants were doing was Dexter Lawrence absolutely smoking the interior. That's Bradbury, that's Ingram. The only change since that game that the Vikings have made to their entire offensive line has been at left guard. And that's a guy named Blake Brandel, who has been a backup the whole time, who's getting a basically uncontested starting role. Everybody's really raising an eyebrow on it, but the Vikings swear by it. They say he's got this. They even signed Dalton Reisner, who they kind of brought in to be a de facto Ezra Cleveland replacement. They traded Cleveland to the Jaguars, and now Reisner's hurt, but it did not appear like he was going to be competing really seriously for that job anyways. He was given very much a backup contract. So Blake Brandel, starting left guard, and the other 2 guys that Dexter Lawrence absolutely made mincemeat of last time. So if you're looking for a way to get pressure up the interior there with Dexter Lawrence, he might be the key of keys on that defense.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is coming off a 2nd straight Pro Bowl. He was a 2nd team All-Pro. Best player they have on defense.
Arguably the best player at that position now that Aaron Rodgers out. I think you can make that argument because so many nose tackles don't do anything in pass rush. And Dexter Lawrence, not only does he do stuff in pass rush, sometimes he's the focal point of the pass rush. That's so weird. Offenses aren't used to that.
I know. I'm not used to seeing that either. Yeah. It's actually quite nice to see, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So, Luke, before we say goodbye to everybody, I'm not going to ask you for a score, but who wins the game Sunday?
I guess I'll go with the Vikings because they're favored, but I genuinely have no earthly idea. There are so many variables and question marks. Hey, both of us feel pretty bad about our secondary, but we're not sure. Both of us feel weird about our QBs, but we're not sure. We're weird about the O-lines, but we're not sure. Everything, we have a vibe, but what's real and what isn't is going to come out. But I do think that by the end of the first quarter, we'll get a sense for exactly what's real and what isn't, and we'll have a much easier time kind of gathering the vibe of the game, pretty early.
All right. I'm going to just come right out and say it and call me a homer if you have to. I think the Giants win this one.
Sure.
I mean, if they don't, like I said, they've got to get off to a strong start for this season. But, I think if you look through the matchups, you look through, who has the competitive edge, I think the Giants, that defensive front, hands down, I think they have the edge over the offensive line of the Vikings. I mentioned my concerns with the defensive secondary. That defensive front can get the job done. It could be a fun afternoon. Then it's just a matter of, can Daniel Jones in the passing game click and do what they need to do? Can they open up holes for the running game and make for a balanced offense? But I'm going to go with the Giants. Why not?
Hey,
right?
Can't hold that against you. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a weird one. I'm glad this one's not on primetime. Everybody, please look away from this game. I do not think this is going to be the prettiest football that we see out of these teams this decade.
Well, unlike you, I'm not a fan of the red look, but it is what it is. I totally
see, now
forgot
that I
about
could get
that
in.
until you mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. They're part of those uniforms.
Yeah,
But
they got
it'll
the
be- it'll be
throwback logo
weird.
and everything, harking back to pre-war days.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it'll be
It's lovely.
weird for sure.
Very interesting game on the docket for the Vikings and the Giants. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but hey, one team has to win, or maybe they don't. Maybe they tie. But be sure to check out Luke Braun over at Locked On Vikings, Patricia Traina over on Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The late window has plenty to offer for the NFL season in week one. Very exciting matchups. Cleveland and Dallas, Los Angeles and Las Vegas. There are a ton of things to get into for this late window. We have to start off with that big matchup that is Cleveland and Dallas, as Dak Prescott obviously hopes to make an early case for a potential big mega contract extension in Cleveland. They go as Deshaun Watson goes, and we'll see how he performs in week one under the 425 lights. So without any further ado, let's get into our conversation on what you need to know with Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys and Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns.
Crossover Thursday from the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Browns, Locked On Cowboys, brought to you by Prize Picks. He is Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys. I am Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns. Path to victory. Marcus, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, let's start on offense for the Cowboys. And I think it's going to be a lot of quick passes in this game because the last thing you can do is let Myles Garrett ruin this game. And just a quick aside, the best two edge rushers in the NFL are in this game. I think everybody can appreciate that. We don't have to talk about that.
I did say that 2 episodes ago.
Well, I mean, it's also the truth, right? We don't have to talk about that other guy because these are clearly the best two pass rushers, right? So don't let Myles Garrett ruin the game. I anticipate the Cowboys using a lot of slants, a lot of play action, things to try to keep that pass rush at bay. On defense for the Cowboys, it's going to be about getting pressure on Deshaun Watson without having to send more than 5 guys. And one of the things that Mike Zimmer does really well is come up with, he calls them Zim pressures, right? Where they're showing 6, but only 5 will rush and 1 will drop into coverage. With Deshaun Watson not playing at all in the preseason and missing the final however many games last year, you got to assume that there's going to be some rust, right? Can you take advantage of that? Give him different looks that maybe he's just not used to seeing. I'm going to be really curious to see if the Cowboys can find ways to disrupt the rhythm of the passing attack for the Cleveland Browns. And then one more that I wanted to mention. It's an outdoor game in week one. I'm not sure what the status is of Dustin Hopkins, who was one of the best kickers in the NFL last year. Seems like he might be iffy to go. Is that correct still, Jeff?
He did kick 1 field goal in the final preseason game, and it seemed like him not around yesterday, it was more of maybe a travel getting back. I don't think Dustin Hopkins' family is with him in Cleveland. Go ahead.
Okay. It's going to be a big game because I think this is going to be a close contest, right? We're not giving predictions, but I think like 20-17, 23-20, that type of game. Kicking is going to matter in this one. Brandon Aubrey was arguably the best kicker in the NFL last year. He was an all-pro. Didn't kick outdoors a ton, and that makes me a little nervous. But I also want to mention the kicking game in kickoffs, right? This is the first time where we'll be full go for an entire game. Don't boot the ball out of the end zone. Don't kick it out of bounds. Give yourself an opportunity to pin Cleveland back at the 20, 25-yard line. Keep an eye on the kickers in this game because Aubrey and Hopkins are 2 of the best in the NFL. And honestly, whichever one kicks better will probably win this game.
And it's funny when you bring up the special teams aspect. Look, it's as new to us guys as it's going to be to all of you. So there's not really that much more to bring up other than, kickers make your kicks. Kickers don't do silly, stupid things like cost your team 10 to 15 yards.
But that's week one, right? Like
Of course. We're going to see probably 3 or 4 games this week decided by either a kicker missing or making a kick. When you have 2 quality opponents or quality teams like the Cowboys and the Browns, both double-digit win teams last year, a lot of times it does come down to who makes that 53-yard field goal and who doesn't.
Yep, and of course, who may give the other one, the opposition, the opportunity because of a poorly placed kickoff. For the Browns, a couple things here. Look, it is going to be this offensive line. Singleton here, and look, we're all excited. We really, really are, but we just don't know. And he's replacing one of the legends in the NFL, certainly in Bill Callahan. But we just have not seen this group collectively together with him. So it is basically, do I think they're going to be good? Sure. But I have to be able to prove that. So I have no proof to prove anything.
Jeff, real quick, I wanted to mention the Cowboys went through this with Bill Callahan. He was their offensive line coach
that's right.
in the mid-2010s. And that first year that he left, the offensive line was still pretty good. Where you saw it start to deteriorate was a couple of years after. I'm sure Cleveland's going to be the same way because nobody's as good as Bill Callahan at coaching offensive linemen. It's just how quickly does the coaching deteriorate? Is it this year? Is it next year? Or is it not at all?
Or do you just go the route of, well, what did Bill do every Tuesday, guys? Just give me
Exactly.
some input here. The other thing is, look, you have a rookie corner starting. You have a corner starting coming off of ACL. You got to attack those guys. You got to see what they got. And the other thing, and to your point where you talked about earlier with the quick passing game is nobody's really played. So a lot of the guys playing haven't tackled anybody in a long time. So that is part of the reason why you're going to go with this, because there's a chance for a lot of chunk plays here in this game, just because, guys, it's been a long time, and a lot of it, you're going to see some ankle and this type of thing, just because it's been a long time since you've got mano-a-mano trying to get a guy to the ground. And that speed, look, there is nothing that comes quicker than the game itself. So, I don't want to hear that, you had the team practices, this, that, and the other thing. When it is live on Sunday in front of everybody, it's a whole new ball game. And then the last one is for, the defense. And like we were trying the other day, and I did a bit on Juan Thornhill, and I think some people thought like I was trying to be critical. No, we were just trying to say one thing on the Browns where I thought maybe they didn't get as much out of it last year as they possibly could this year. There is a lot of potential there. And I am one of these people that truly think the Browns defense should be even better this year because not much has changed. And now there is no newness. And, now you can probably even add in a little bit more. You have 3 top corners. Jordan Hicks is a really underrated signing to go play with JOK. The guy gets 130 tackles a season. Miles, you think there's going to be a developmental path that, Alex Wright should probably, in my mind, end up being the second best defensive end on this team by the time the year is over. But either way, it is going to be a big one. And this is one of those games where I think, Marcus, and you might agree, you want to get this out of the way week 1. Because it's truly a 50-50 game. So you don't want to play this week 17 or week 18 when you really, really need the W. So, look, you get it out of the way. You know where you're at. The Browns have a relatively easy first 6 weeks of the season. You don't think they're going to go 6-0. You do have the advantage that it is in your place. So it's going to be a big one. I mean, and, you keep in mind, 4 years. I mean, the prime of COVID, Browns, Cowboys, and it was, I think, 49-38. I mean, Browns had a big lead, had no defense. They have a lot better defense now than they did in 2020, of course. But it should be a really, really good ball game. And if you all check the television map, Marcus, myself, and apparently every single red-blooded American is all going to be watching it together.
Yeah, we got Tom Brady on the call. First game that he's ever done broadcasting, which just adds even more excitement to this. I'm really excited because usually in week 1, you don't want to play like a division game or a big conference game. It's nice to play an out of conference game where, hey, if you lose, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. But these are 2 really good teams. I think we're going to see how these 2 teams stack up and measure against each other early on. This is kind of what you want. Like, you want a really good test out of the gate. And if you win, great. That's a fantastic start. If you lose, again, not a big deal. This is what we need to get to in order to become a playoff team once again.
And, you'll find out a lot about each team through week 1. And, then you go back to the drawing board, and those are things that each team tries to improve on. But, I mean, you got quarterbacks, you got receivers, you got pass rushers, you name it. This game has it. Browns, Cowboys, Sunday, 4:25.
I'm expecting plenty of fireworks in that game for sure. And for more on Marcus and Jeff, be sure to check out Marcus over on Locked On Cowboys, Jeff over on Locked On Browns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's take it out to the West Coast. The Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, an AFC West battle to start the year. The Chargers, new look. Jim Harbaugh comes in after Brandon Staley gets fired. Obviously, Justin Herbert and that Chargers offense, a big storyline. And for Las Vegas, Gardner Minshew after the Raiders retained Antonio Pierce after a strong start to the season. We'll see how both these teams match up as they try to catch the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. We'll talk with your boy Q of Locked On Raiders and David Drogemeyer of Locked On Chargers to get you ready for the game now.
All right, we are back here on Crossover Thursday, and Q, we got to talk about what each team is going to have to do to win this football game and start this season off 1-0 on this Crossover Thursday, but is presented by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So obviously, again, you guys are the away team, so we're going to start with you guys. What are going to be the three things that you think that the Raiders have to do in order to win this football game on Sunday?
You know, it's funny, man, because I think about this all the time. I mean, obviously, every week we think about, what is it going to take for the team to get the victory? But for this team, the theme all season, as far as I'm concerned, one, they've got to stay on schedule, right? And I don't think I've ever said that as one of the keys to the game is staying on schedule. But for this team and this offense in particular, it's going to be so important. The false starts, the holding penalties, the negative plays, the taking sacks or whatever, delay of games. They had multiples of those in the preseason. That's not going to fly. This team, and I know Raider Nation doesn't like it when I say it, this team offensively is not going to be good enough to overcome that. They're just not. They have to be sound. They have to stay on schedule in this Luke Getsy offense. They have to be able to get the ball to their playmakers, but they have to have, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, not 3rd and 11 or 2nd and 20. And those are just going to be drive killers for this team. So they've got to make sure that they stay on schedule. And I know it's not going to happen all the time. There's going to be times where they have issues, but this team is going to struggle to overcome those issues. So staying on schedule is going to be the biggest key for this team if they want to win this game or any other game throughout the course of the season. The other big key for the Raiders and this offense to have an opportunity to thrive is for Gardner Minshew to make good decisions, right? I mean, he can't turn the ball over. He can't leave the pocket too soon. He's got to understand where the play is supposed to develop, how to get it to the playmakers, and they have plenty. I don't think Gardner Minshew in the course of his career, whether it's in Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, now with the Raiders, I don't think he's ever had as many playmakers as he has right now. So he has an opportunity to have a really good season, but he's got to be the best version of himself. And the thing I've been really stressing is, what are you going to be consistently? Like, I don't need you to be a 10 and then a 3 and then a 5 and then a 9 and then a 6 and then a 2. I need you to give me at least a 7, right? If you can be a 7 consistently, I think Antonio Pierce and the Raiders will take that. They'll say, you know what? That's cool, especially with they're going to have a heavy dose of the running game, Zamir White, Alexander Madison. All this is going to play a part, and that's part of the running game is part of the staying on schedule because they're definitely going to want to put a lot of Zamir White into the mix so they keep the pressure off of Gardner Minshew and what he's trying to do offensively. And then the third thing, the biggest key for the Raiders is on the other side of the ball. Defensively, they just got to stop the run. They've got to be able to stop the run. It's something they struggled with in the preseason, as I mentioned before. They've got to show that was just a vanilla defense and they weren't really working on it, and it's not scheme or personnel struggles, right? I mean, if they can't stop the run, not only are they going to struggle this week against the Chargers, but Jim Harbaugh's brother, John Harbaugh in Baltimore, is coming up week 2. They're going to want to run the rock as well. So, I mean, there's so many teams that if you see this team can't stop the run, you're going to do that. You're not going to put your quarterback in harm's way. So, 2 things offensively, stay ahead of the schedule, stay ahead of the sticks. Gardner Minshew has to be smart with the ball, and then the defense got to be able to stop the run. If they could do those 3 things consistently, feel good about it, get the defense off the field where they're not on the field all day long, they have a really good chance to win this game. And I feel like they have a chance to win a lot of games if they can stick to that recipe. It's what happens when adversity hits is going to be the biggest question. So when you look at the Raiders, that's really what I think are the biggest 3 keys for success coming up on Sunday. When you look at the Chargers, what are you looking at? What are some of the 3 keys that you're looking at for this game coming up?
Yeah, so the 3 keys I got for this game for the Chargers, they absolutely have to do if they want to win this football game is, first and foremost, do not let Max Crosby derail this offense because he has the ability to do so. Obviously, Joe Alt is the 5th overall pick for the Chargers, and he is going to be out of the frying pan and into the fire going up against one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. So welcome to the NFL, kid. Go try and block Max Crosby. Okay. But obviously don't leave him on an island every single snap. You guys have the Chargers have one of the better blocking tight ends in the league with Will Dissly. I do expect he'll probably be on that side, providing some assistance to Joe Alt from time to time. The second thing is establish the running game. Got to run the rock. If Jim Harbaugh wants to bring that identity of physicality, then it has to be something they stick with and they are consistent. But that means that the run blockers, the offensive line, the tight ends, the wide receivers, everybody has got to be on schedule, doing their job, and being there with great timing. That's all going to be very, very important for the Chargers to establish that running game. And then the defense has to be connected, Q. The too much in the past where the Chargers defense so disjointed and allowed so many explosive plays on the ground and through the air. They can't have the broken coverages and the misassignments in the running game and the passing game. You can't give the easy completions to Gardner Minshew and the Raiders offense. Those are the three things to me that I feel like the Chargers have to do if they want to win this game on Sunday.
No, those are really good ones. I mean, really, because Max Crosby, he wrecked practice. Every practice in training camp. Like there's times they just had to take him out because he was wrecking practice, right? He wasn't allowed to get any work in. So yeah, I mean, stopping him from wrecking the game is a big key. And if that does happen, if the Chargers are successful in doing that, obviously they'll have a big focus on that. That means someone else has got to step up. I mentioned Malcolm Kuntz, Christian Wilkins, whatever. Somebody else has to step up and say, hey, if they're going to focus on him, let me go ahead and eat. You mentioned the short passing game. It's a West Coast offense led by Luke Getsy. It's about, the good timing on the passes, getting the ball out of his hands, and boom, getting the easy completions, as you mentioned, to guys like Devontae, Jacoby Myers, and others. So that'll be a big key. If you could take those away and limit them, that'll be, a good day at the office for the Chargers defense. And, the run game, again, that's going to be one of the biggest keys, I think, for both teams, right?
I agree.
Both teams really want to run the ball, have a heavy emphasis on it. It's funny. I've been talking about the Raiders need to find a way to score 24 points. I can see this game being where neither one of these teams score 24 points, that both of these teams score under 20 because it's going to be a lot of ball control, a lot of running the rock, a lot of physicality in the trenches. And, I mean, that makes for, I feel like, a good Sunday afternoon football game.
David and Q were great, and check both of them out. Q over on Locked On Raiders, David over on Locked On Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for what you need to know about that exciting AFC West matchup. Now, the Commanders and Buccaneers. Jaden Daniels, the second overall pick in the 2024 draft, will be making his NFL debut against Antoine Winfield Jr. and that Buccaneers defense. James Yarko of Locked On Bucks, David Harrison of Locked On Commanders have everything you need to know to see if Jaden Daniels can do what he needs to do against the talented Buccaneers defense.
We are wrapping things up here on a crossover Thursday of the Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. And crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. David, you are the visiting team this week. I will defer to you. What are the three things that the Commanders need to do to win this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit all three phases here. I'm gonna go protect Jaden Daniels, and we'll talk about this more, but that also includes Jaden Daniels, protecting Jaden Daniels. Tackle, we just kind of talked about that a little bit, but that's certainly the key. And then make your kicks. Those are the three things. So again, offense, defense, special teams, we're covering all three bases here. Jaden Daniels, that offensive line, even if the Buccaneers pass rush weaponry doesn't look as sexy on the surface and on paper as it usually does, still an NFL defensive, pass rush, still Todd Bowles and his creativity, his ability to maximize talent wherever he's got it. So you still have to be concerned there. And Jaden himself, look, the conversation has been had. Is he smart enough to not take hits, to slide, to run out of bounds, all that stuff? He is. The question isn't, is he smart enough to do it? The question is he going to do it? Because he also wants to make plays for his team. So I think you got to protect Jaden from a frontline standpoint, but also from a quarterback mindset standpoint as well. Just understand where the best decision is for your team. From a defensive standpoint, tackle. Again, we just talked about guys like Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Mike Evans. We know the yak conversation around Mike Evans, but look, if you miss tackles, anybody's going to get yak, right? Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, certainly a lot of capability there. So this team's got to wrap up and tackle. And I can't tell you that was exactly this team's strongest suit on defense during the preseason. But a lot of like Bobby Wagner didn't play any preseason reps. You know what I mean? So there were some other mitigating factors there that potentially could help this team get better in that aspect. And then kickers. The Commanders had to release their first kicker due to an off the field issue. But then they went through two other kickers, one that came from the UFL and all this, and one that became a free agent, and just not a good history there. Cade York comes in from the Cleveland Browns, a 7th round draft pick trade there. He made all four of his kicks with Cleveland in the preseason. He made all four of his kicks with Washington in the preseason. So that's a much better improvement over what they had been dealing with. So maybe fourth time is the charm for the Washington Commanders. But if you're going to get into field goal range, you need to convert those field goal opportunities into points, because nothing puts a rookie quarterback under pressure faster than a deficit. And if the Buccaneers put up some points, which we do expect the Bucs are going to score, right? And then you're missing out on your scoring opportunities, that's only going to put Jaden Daniels under the gun more, which then trickle down economics, or wraparound economics, I guess, wraps us right back to the most important thing on this list. So I think all those three things are going to play a hand in what happens in this game. And if the Commanders do those three things, then they have a chance to pull off the upset.
Yeah, this is not the Commanders team, again, that drafted number 2 overall in this past draft. This is a completely new look. This is a completely different franchise. So the Bucs are not guaranteed anything in this. This is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be a walk in the park. Jaden Daniels is going to cause problems. That defensive front is going to cause problems. Bucs fans are hoping that they miss some tackles, let Jalen get into space and make some plays. But yeah, this is going to be a tough spot for the Buccaneers. So what do they need to do to get a win? Well, first you got to contain Jaden Daniels. You have to attack a very weak secondary, or a perceived weak secondary, and then keep Baker's jersey white. Bucs are wearing white jerseys, white pants, making Commanders play in that Florida Heat in those dark uniforms. But look, it all starts with Todd Bowles being able to put the right scheme together to contain a dual threat like Daniels. Is he going to focus a lot on, his edge rushers really just keeping contained, keeping that pocket, up the side, so that Vita Vea and Kalijah Casey can collapse the middle and open things up for some blitzers? Is he going to disguise a lot of these blitzes? They kept 11 defensive backs on this roster. All of them, every single one of them, are versatile players. You can blitz Antoine Winfield Jr. You can blitz Jordan Whitehead. You can blitz Tyke Smith and Christian Izien and Zion McCollum out of the slot. You can blitz all these guys. You still have Levante David. He's not quite as dynamic as Devin White was, but he can still get after the quarterback in his own right. Are you going to set up a lot of this to confuse Daniels and get after him early, get that internal clock in his first NFL game sped up a little bit so he starts making some mistakes with all of these disguises? Are you going to just spy him? Is that the solution? Harken back to Derek Brooks versus Michael Vick. Those kinds of situations. Is it going to be a committee? Is KJ Britt going to be the spy? Levante, you can have Anthony do it. You have a wealth of weapons on the defensive side of the ball. It's about putting those chess pieces in the right spot to make a rookie quarterback very uncomfortable in his first game. And then that secondary, we know Mike is going to be Mike. Jalen McMillan is going to be an absolute stud. I'm looking at Chris Godwin in his return to the slot. You know how dangerous that is. Yeah. Think of Cooper Kupp circa 2021. That's the role envisioned by Liam Cohen for Chris Godwin, because there aren't very many, if any, teams that can match up with Chris Godwin in the slot and actually be close to being as good as he is. He's finally fully healthy. This is going to be, a big opportunity for them. And then keep Baker's jersey white. That defensive front for Washington is fantastic. You have a rookie center. You have a new left guard. You have a second-year right guard. You may have the best left tackle in football. You may have an emerging right tackle, but that interior was a problem for the Buccaneers last year. They need to have gelled. They need to be ready to face one of the most difficult defensive fronts that they are going to face all season long right out of the gate. They are in for a fight. Baker has to be upright so that he can attack that weak secondary and really start to rack up those points.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, like you said, if the Bucs do those things, they certainly should. They're favored in this matchup for a reason. And if they do those three things, then you would assume that they're going to come out with a victory. Of course, as everybody knows, this time of year in Tampa, the weather is probably going to make an appearance in some way, shape, or form. I'm hoping there is not a delay. Although, if there is a delay, I can go across to the Bucs, because this is going to be my first time in Raymond James on the away side of the press box. It's going to be weird. I have a feeling, I'm going to, those of you who have seen me in person know that I like to eat. I have a feeling I'm going to get to the stairs to go down the press box and make the wrong, turn left to go towards the home side of the press box. At least once I'm going to do it, and then have to be like, oh yeah, my bad. I'm over here with the strangers this time. But you know what? So a little bit of a rain delay wouldn't be terrible for me. I can go say hi to some people I haven't seen in a while and do all those things. So it's gonna be super cool. But there's a lot of factors in here. Obviously, it's football, right? So you can't whittle it down to just one thing. But yeah, I think those three things give the Bucs the best chance to pull off the favored victory. But at the same time, on the other side of the ball, man, I'm telling you, Jaden Daniels, brother, he is another animal. I made the comparison that I think if Jaden Daniels' house was on fire, which knock on wood it never is, I think he would walk out of it. I don't think he would run. I think he would walk, and somehow he would still grab all of his valuables, but he would walk out the house and be like, "Man, house is on fire!" Like, that dude just does not shake. And I actually pitched that analogy to his mother once, and she started laughing. She's like, "That's it." She's like, that's exactly Jaden. I will make a bold prediction. I know it's not part of the program, but I will make a bold prediction. So we did a little bit of talking about Todd Bowles against rookie quarterbacks. The most rushing yards a rookie quarterback has gotten against a Todd Bowles defense is 38 yards since he's arrived at Tampa, I should say. 38 yards. My bold prediction for you here, James Yarko, Jaden Daniels will eclipse that on one carry. I don't know if it's a first carry, but he will have a carry. It could be a scramble. He will have one rush in the game that will eclipse 38 yards. That's a spicy Cheeto bold prediction for every day, as you remember our categories of bold predictions.
All right, well, then I'll throw out a bold prediction of my own. Jaden Daniels, first career turnover is going to go into the hands of Zion McCollum.
Zion.
You predicted on Locked On Bucs every week last year was going to get his first career takeaway. It's happening in week one. And Zion's going to pick off Jaden Daniels. All right.
If he does, I'm going to give him a press box high five. I'm just going to be like, high five in the glass. So we'll have to make sure he knows that I'm doing that for him.
Yeah. I mean, the man bought a jugs machine and then taught his brand new bride how to operate it so that he could work on his hands.
It's about that business.
You got to love the dedication.
David and James work great together. And for more on David, be sure to check him out over at Locked On Commanders. More on James, check him out over on Locked On Buccaneers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One more late window game to go, but then we have the prime time games coming up here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. A ton of exciting prime time action coming your way. But let's get into the final game, Broncos-Seahawks. The Broncos draft Bo Nix as their hopeful quarterback of the future, another year under Sean Payton. And for the Seattle Seahawks, Mike McDonald comes in from Baltimore to take over a team with Geno Smith at the helm. We'll talk with Sarah Bedinger of Locked On Broncos, Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. What do they have to say about the state of this game?
Welcome back to the first crossover Thursday edition of the 2024 season. I'm Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. Glad to be joined by Sarah Bedinger of Locked On Broncos. A special thanks to all the 12s and Broncos fans out there for making Locked On Seahawks and Locked On Broncos your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedInNFL, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Seahawks and Broncos, week one. Former AFC West rivals battling at Lumen Field, both looking to get off to fast starts. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, Sarah, a lot of newness for both teams, different degrees of newness. Obviously, the quarterback situation in Denver, the new coaching staff in Seattle. First time Pete Carroll isn't on the sideline since way back in 2009. So there's plenty of big changes for both these teams going into a game that creates a lot of uncertainty in week one, more so than there already is. Week one is always kind of a wild card when it comes to what you're going to see of the pre limited the starters typically are for teams in the league. Now, let's get to the most important things for both teams to accomplish to win this football game. And we'll start with the visiting Denver Broncos. And Sarah, you mentioned all the newness, particularly with Bo Nix. First NFL regular season start. He gets to go to one of the loudest venues in the NFL. Not an easy test, but when you look at this game from a Broncos perspective, what are the three most important things that are jumping out to you that Denver has to accomplish to get out of Lumen Field with a season opening win?
Well, I think number one, you want to see Bo Nix get into rhythm and keeping him in rhythm, especially when they're, mixing the run and the pass game. Number two, you want to see the Broncos defensive front putting pressure on Geno Smith early and often. And number three, seeing this young secondary stepping up, which against this Seattle Seahawks wide receiver group, that could end up being one of the most key matchups of the game, because we know Pat Surtain, he can hold down his side of the field. But on the other side, the Broncos do have some question marks. It could be Riley Moss, a second-year player out of Iowa, out there at the cornerback position. It could be the veteran Levi Wallace getting some more playing time this week as the Broncos kind of try to acclimate Riley Moss into the mix, because he hasn't played outside corner at this point yet in the NFL, aside from a couple of preseason games. So that to me is one of those situations to where we know the Seahawks have guys who can make plays at wide receiver and they can spread the ball around. Do the Broncos have the guys that can keep up with them in coverage, especially because of their youth back there, not only at corner, but at the safety position, where PJ Locke taking on a full-time starting role this coming season after kind of having a breakout year last year for the Broncos, and Brandon Jones coming in free agency from the Dolphins. A lot of Broncos fans concerned about Brandon because he was injured in OTAs. He was hurt throughout training camp in the preseason. We have not yet seen Brandon Jones play a game as a member of the Denver Broncos. So this week one, assuming he plays, this will be the first time we all see number 22 out there. And so it's going to be a very interesting sort of experience for everybody in real time to kind of figure out what is Vance Joseph's new look secondary going to be able to do against maybe what could be their biggest test of the season in terms of Seattle's personnel.
The Broncos want Bo Nix to get comfortable. They want him to get in a rhythm. The Seahawks want to do the exact opposite in this game. They want the crowd noise to get to the rookie. They want the pass rush to get after him. But to me, most importantly, put everything on Bo Nix's shoulders. Don't let the Broncos get their run game going with Javonte Williams and company, because that is the best way to come into Lumen. And Seattle's run defense has been god-awful the last 2 years. They've been 30th and 31st in the NFL the last 2 seasons. Mike McDonald's hoping to immediately come in and remedy that issue. And so far, the returns have been promising. But you've got to limit the run game and put everything on Bo Nix's plate. To me, that's the first key for the Seahawks in this game. Force Bo Nix to beat you in his NFL regular season debut. If he ends up doing it, then more power to him. But force the young quarterback to have to shoulder the load and beat you. And then on the offensive side of the football, this is going to seem very elementary, but you got to keep Geno Smith upright in this game. You mentioned the talent that the Broncos have on their defensive line. That is probably my biggest concern on either side of the football coming in this game, because Seattle doesn't have Abraham Lucas back yet from his knee injury. We don't know if Connor Williams is going to be available to play in this game coming off the torn ACL. Signs are trending towards him being available, but there are a lot of question marks still on that offensive line. It isn't going to matter if Jackson Smith and Jigba is ready for a breakout year, or Tyler Lockett still can get it done, or DK Metcalf is poised to go for a team record of receiving yards. None of that matters if Geno Smith does not have time to throw the football. And so that is going to be a big question here, because if he has time, if the Seahawks offensive line is able to protect him, he's able to stay upright. As you mentioned, I do think if there's an area the Seahawks have a big advantage, even against Pat Surtain, DK Metcalf had success against him a couple years ago. That is one of the few receivers that creates a little bit of a matchup issue for Pat Surtain. And the rest of the secondary's got a lot of question marks. Seattle does not have question marks at receiver. They are loaded there. Even their number 4 and 5 receivers, Jake Bobo and Laviska Shenault, are really good football players. They've got a lot of weapons, but Geno Smith's got to have time to throw. If they give him that time with the home crowd behind him, I think Seattle has a chance to put a lot of points on the board, but that is a big question mark. Are they going to be able to do that? And then at home, you got to win the turnover battle, especially when you're playing a rookie quarterback. making his NFL regular season debut. It's elementary, but you got to win the turnover battle. This is a defense that Mike McDonald in Baltimore orchestrated that created a lot of havoc with their pre and post snap changes, with the complexity of the defense, the blitzes and the sim packages, all different levels of the defense. They're looking to create turnovers. And that was something the Baltimore Ravens were as good as anybody at the last couple of years. So the Seahawks going to be able to pick that up with some of the talented players they have up front. And in the secondary, this will be a little bit of a litmus test going against a rookie quarterback and an offense that's got some question marks with some of the pieces they're trying to implement. So can you win the turnover battle? I think if they win the turnover battle in this game, their chances of winning go up exponentially, because I do feel like the Seahawks have a little bit more continuity and a little more proven experience at a number of positions. But again, it boils down to O-line protection. And are you going to be able to get some of those turnovers to get some quick changes, get the ball back into Geno Smith's hands and try to get some points on the scoreboard quickly? Looking at this game from a FanDuel perspective with our betting lines, the Seahawks coming in at 5.5-point favorites at home. Over-under's a little on the lower side at 41.5. I'm not really that surprised by that, Sarah, because we are going to the game with a rookie quarterback making his first start in Denver, so there's some question marks there. And even with Seattle, with all the talent that they've got, you've got a new offensive coordinator, and so nobody really knows what to expect in the regular season. So I'm not surprised it's on a little lower end in terms of over-under. But from a prediction standpoint, we'll dive into scores on our Friday shows, respectively, on Locked On Seahawks and the Locked On Broncos. But 5.5 points, underdogs. Do you see the Broncos covering that, or do you see this being a game where that 5.5 ends up being difficult for them to cover?
I do think they can cover that. I think this Broncos team is going to be better than a lot of people expect. We're used to hearing the number 5.5 from FanDuel this offseason, as that's the Broncos win total projection as well. So I've been smashing the over on 5.5 all offseason long, and I'm just glad the over-under is not set at 50.5, because 43 and 8, those two numbers combined together, that still inflicts a little bit of terror in the hearts of Broncos country there. But I do think the Broncos can cover 5.5 points. I think they're going to be a better team overall than is expected this year. That doesn't mean they're not going to get their butts kicked every now and again, but I think they're going to be able to hang in this game, and we'll see what happens in terms of win-loss. But I think they are going to be playing everybody tight this season.
There is not a game on the schedule that's more unpredictable than week one, and that's just for all 32 teams. You just don't know what to expect. And I look at this game. Look, I have really high expectations for what this Broncos team could become down the line. And I think in week one, you never know what you're going to get. So 5.5, that might be a little bit rich for me right now for the Seahawks, even playing at home, because there is a lot of newness for both these teams. So I don't have them covering that. Now, does that mean I have them winning or losing? You'll have to listen to tomorrow's episode to find out. But I expect that this is going to be a tight game. I think the Denver Broncos have more talent than people are giving them credit for. In fact, I could see Denver, if things fall right, being the second best team in the AFC West, because I think the Chargers have questions. The Raiders certainly have questions. So I could see this being a team, if everything falls right for Sean Payton, that ends up being much better than advertised. Not saying it's a playoff team, but certainly could be a team that rises up the division standings and starts to pave a brighter future moving forward after the last couple of years just didn't play out as planned. But I do think this is going to be a very close game, and I expect it's going to be back and forth. Week one is crazy as it is.
Broncos and Seahawks in a Super Bowl rematch of that game that feels like all those years ago, but really wasn't that long ago in terms of time. But for more on Corbin, more on Sarah, check them out over at Locked On Seahawks, Locked On Broncos, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's time for prime time, and we go out to Detroit to kick it off for Sunday Night Football. Detroit fell short to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game last season with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, and they'll be trying to hold off the Los Angeles Rams, a bit of a homecoming for Matthew Stafford, as he was that longtime quarterback in Detroit. So Travis Rodgers of Locked On Rams, Matt Derry of Locked On Lions have everything you need to know about the Matthew Stafford reunion.
Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Travis Rodgers, Locked On Rams. We'll cross over here on a Thursday. All right, Travis, what's it going to take for the Rams to win? What are some keys? What are some things you see that could get an LAW.
I think they're going to have to get pressure on Jared Goff somehow, some way that doesn't include Aaron Donald. This is something that I've been, the everydayers that listen to Locked on Rams will hear me say this over and over and over again. It's exciting in one sense to see a defense without Aaron Donald for the first time in 10 years, that he's been such a mainstay. He's been so good. But it's also terrifying to know that you're going into a new season without, never mind the best defensive player in the history of your team, maybe the greatest player in the history of your team. So, and the leadership that he brought, I think it's really interesting to see what it might look like with his absence, and not just from a, does he get to the quarterback? Does he fill his gap? It's a lot more than just that. I think that's one part of it. The other part, and this is super basic, but I believe that it's true. It's, something that the play-by-play voice of the Rams, JB Long, always says. It's that CQI. It's the coach quarterback injury. And they have the coach. We know that Sean McVay knows what he's doing. We know that Matthew Stafford knows what he's doing. The question is, does the injuries that the Rams have had, especially on the offensive line, put pressure on Matthew Stafford, allow him not to make good decisions, allow him have to make quick decisions? Can they not run the ball? Can they not keep it Detroit honest as far as defending both the run and the pass? I think those are the two big things for me. And then, of course, we talked about it briefly a second ago. Can they kick field goals? And I'm not talking, can you kick 55-yard field goals? I'm talking, can you kick 42-yard field goals? Can you feel good about kicking something less than 45 yards and feel like you have 3 points in your back pocket? I think it changes the way Sean McVay calls plays. I think it changes the way the end of the game gets managed potentially, and whether or not they feel good with him. I think we're going to get a pretty good look at it early. I think those are the three keys for me.
Yeah, I love the pressure thing. I think the fans, look, that first home playoff game, the first time since '93 that Lions fans got to be in their own building for a playoff game, it's hard to replicate that. I mean, these fans are hungry. It will be loud. Don't get me wrong. But that stadium and that vitriol for Stafford and just everything that went into last year was unbelievable. And I don't know if the Lion fans can do that. Now, they're going to be loud. And I think a big key is stay loud. Jonah Jackson, shotgun snaps with noise, hasn't played center in the NFL in college. I think that can be a big advantage to the Lions. A couple of low snaps can throw everything off. So I think crowd is going to be a factor that will help the Lions. Like you said, attacking and getting pressure on Goff. Same with the Lions. Who's that opposite edge? Is it James Houston? Is it Marcus Davenport? Josh Pascal? Who's going to Derek Barnes? Who's going to get off the edge? Tackle a little bit shaky for the Rams right now. I think that's a definite key. And again, like you said, Jake Bates, can he make these kicks? Last year's game was close. Maher did his job for the most part for the Rams, and of course Badgley for the Lions. But I think with offenses that have not worked a ton here in August and September, and guys are going to be rusty. I see this maybe coming down to the kicking game. And is Jake Bates that guy for the Lions? I think we're kind of lockstep on a couple of these keys, Travis.
Yeah, it's funny. It's does your offensive line protect your quarterback? Does your quarterback make good decisions? And does your kicker make the kicks that they're supposed to make?
Right. That's pretty wild.
That's basically what it is, right?
Well, but there won't be any center snap problems, I don't think, with Frank Ragnow. This is
no, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. I do like the Rams and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford in particular, that even in a loud environment, like you mentioned, last year in Detroit, I was talking with my co-host DeMarco Farr, he does sidelines for the Rams radio broadcast. And he played in the NFL for a long time. He's a Super Bowl champion. He played in 3 Rose Bowls as a member of the Washington Huskies. So he knows big venues with big moments. Said he'd never heard anything like he heard in that game in Detroit. So that they've been in that environment, that those guys have been through big moments before, I think, hopefully, if I'm being optimistic, will serve them well.
So you see the Rams, you going to pick the Rams? What do you think?
My heart picks the Rams. My head tells me on the road against a very good team, and the Rams are breaking in a lot of new players on defense. They've got a makeshift offensive line. My brain is telling me that I think that the Lions have a pretty distinct advantage in this particular game. I never underestimate Sean McVay. I never underestimate Matthew Stafford. So I think the Rams will keep it close. I do not think that they are going to get stomped. I don't think that happens very often in the McVay era, but I just don't know if they have enough horsepower right now to beat that team in their own backyard. I think that the Lions win it by a field goal or less.
Yeah, FanDuel has it at 3.5 right now for the Lions. Last year's game finished 24-23. I see it 23-21. I see the Rams sticking around. Like you said, Stafford making plays in that building, a building that he was beloved in for years, 10 plus years. And I do think the Lions will win, but I do, like I said before, I see some stretches where there's just rust offensively and trying to get this thing going. But, keep an eye too on Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I think those guys are really good. And if they can run the football, keep Stafford and that McVay offense off the field, I like the Lions as well.
Plenty of intriguing storylines in that game, but the big one, that Matthew Stafford one is one that absolutely needs to be watched over the entire course of the game. But Travis and Matt do a great job. Check out Travis over on Locked On Rams, Matt over on Locked On Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up week 1, 49ers Jets. It's the re-debut of Aaron Rodgers after tearing his Achilles just a couple plays into his Jets debut last season. He suits up as the Jets quarterback once again, going up against the NFC champions at their home stadium in San Francisco. Brock Purdy hoping to make another great starting impression. San Francisco just re-signed Brandon Ayuk. There are plenty of spicy storylines to get into, and Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker of Locked On 49ers, as well as John Butchko of Locked On Jets, gets you ready for the game.
Locked On crossover episode, 49ers and Jets, brought to you by Prize Picks. Guys, this is it. What has to happen for the Jets to win? What has to happen for the 49ers to win? We've got 3 keys here, 3 must-dos. John, we're going with the away team first. What are the 3 must-dos for the Jets to win against the 49ers Monday?
My number 1 is something we actually talked about a little earlier on the show. Jets need to tackle effectively. And, you could probably say that about every team in every game, but I think there are a couple of components here that make it especially important for the Jets. First of all, you look at the caliber of playmaker the 49ers have on offense. They have a bunch of guys who are tough to bring down. Guys who can make plays with the ball in their hands. And you have that element where the Jets have an excellent defense. This is going to be a top 5 defense if everybody stays healthy. But these guys did not get preseason reps, and you always wonder week 1. You see it across the league. It's not not just a Jets thing. You see it across the league that sometimes teams struggle because their guys haven't really practiced tackling yet. So that for me, that's number 1. Number 2, protect Aaron Rodgers. 49ers have a lot of good pieces on the defensive side of the ball, especially pass rushers, as we talked about. They have the guy that actually put the hit on Aaron Rodgers that injured him last year. Jets have an offensive line that looks good on paper, but it's a new offensive line. Sometimes it takes some chemistry for the pieces to come together. Jets have 3 new starters up front this year. In fact, they have 4 new starters from week 1 last year. Joe Tippmann, in his second year, he was a second-round pick last year, was not a starter at the beginning of last year, took over the starting role during the season. Rodgers, as I mentioned, I think especially in the early part of the season, he's probably not going to be as mobile as he's been in the past. I think if the Jets protect him, they can exploit, especially some of the potential issues the 49ers may have at the safety position. Jets actually have a quarterback who can exploit issues for once, which is a refreshing change of pace for this team because Jets have struggled at the quarterback position quite a bit. And the third thing I'm going to say is, and part of this is because it's in my memory from week 1 last year, but win the special teams battle. These are 2 very talented teams, and I think sometimes we forget about the third phase of the game, the impact that can make. A year ago, as I mentioned, Jets were playing Monday Night Football week 1 against a top flight opponent, the Buffalo Bills. They won that game on a punt return touchdown in overtime by Xavier Gibson. So I think, especially when you have 2 teams that at least on paper look evenly matched, sometimes a big play on special teams or 2 can swing the game.
It's a good point with the special teams because we still don't know how teams are going to employ, once things really matter in the regular season, the new kickoff rules. So could that mix things up in week 1? Do you have a good idea of what the Jets are going to do?
So one of the things that's interesting is Robert Saleh said that he likes the fact that they're playing Monday night because they're going to be able to watch the Sunday games and see how teams address it. Yeah. So I don't think the Jets know what they're doing. I think the Jets may figure this out Monday morning.
I mean, there's a lot of great matchups in this, and none more so than the coaches, right? the former defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan is the head coach of the New York Jets, and these teams operate very similarly. They have similar schemes on offense and defense. They are both teams that want to run the ball, have a dynamic dual threat running backs. They have two of the best defenses in the NFL. And Croc, they both have future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So that's really interesting that these two teams are matched up on Monday Night Football. But for real, there's a Hall of Fame quarterback on one side, and we'll see about Brock Purdy's future. Don't want to put too much on the young man too soon. Get after Aaron Rodgers, right? Don't make life easy, because he's not the type of guy who's going to turn the ball over a lot. You mentioned turnovers already, and it's one of our keys here for the San Francisco 49ers. That goes for both sides. You don't want to turn the ball over, but you want to force potentially maybe a rusty Aaron Rodgers into mistakes, but he's not really a guy that makes a lot of mistakes. So do you want to chase him around, Croc? Do you want to make him move on his bad wheel, or do you want to keep him in the pocket and pressure him from there and try to get him into some 3rd and longs?
Well, I think John, he talked about how Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career may not want to move around a whole lot. If I'm the 49ers, I still kind of want him to play from the pocket, because when Aaron Rodgers does get on the move, if he's still capable of doing that, those are when the back-breaking plays from him happen. And they just cause teams to get, really frustrated. I know how it is to be out there 3rd and 6. You feel like you have everything locked down. Then the quarterback either takes off or gets out on the move, extends the play, and picks up a first down with either his legs or dumping off to someone in space. So that's extremely difficult. It'll be even more difficult for a 49ers team who likes to play a lot of off-man coverage. Are the 49ers going to squeeze these windows to make Aaron Rodgers maybe take a little bit longer to diagnose what's going on and eventually throw the ball? Those are things I'll be looking for. But I think making him play from the pocket maybe gives the 49ers a little bit better of a chance, because all right, playing from the pocket, does he start to get a little finicky? Do you get a few hits on him? What does that end up looking like? It's always going to be tough against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, because he's seen everything. He's seen every look that you could throw at him. But I think for the 49ers, that's one of the main things that they have to do.
And that leads into our other must-do, Croc, which was limit explosive plays, right? And the number one thing for limiting explosive plays is getting to the quarterback quickly.
Well, you have Garrett Wilson out there. I mean, this is a tremendous young receiver. He's really good at stretching the field, being able to make plays at every single level. They got Mike Williams in there. We'll see. John talked about them bringing Mike Williams along a little bit slower. But one thing that Mike Williams can do, even if he's in there for 10 plays, and 10 of those plays, they have him going deep, he is a tremendous contested catch guy vertically down the field. That's something that you have to keep an eye on, especially with the 49ers. You don't have a lot of big guys. You do have Travarius Ward. He has decent length, but when you look at the other guy, right, Diamador Lenore, tremendous defensive back, tremendous corner. All right, but if he's on the outside matched up with 6'3", 6'4" Mike Williams, I think the advantage might kind of go to Mike Williams in a jump ball situation. And Aaron Rodgers, we talked about maybe lack of being able to move or make a whole lot of plays on the move. One thing he doesn't lack is ball placement. I mean, and this guy, when he throws the ball, I feel like he puts it wherever he is trying to put it. And not all quarterbacks say that. I think Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best in the history of the NFL at doing just that. So he'll make it tough, especially if you have those big guys out there. You have to be able to limit the explosive plays.
This is usually the part of the crossover episode where we do some predictions, and I don't know how things are going to go in week 1. I don't think it's going to ruin either the 49ers or the Jets seasons if they don't get a victory in week 1. But I want to go to a prediction a little further down the road, John. Is this potentially a Super Bowl preview with the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers in week 1?
I've been burned so many times by the Jets in the past. So you learn as a Jets fan not to like let your guard down. But I think this Jets team could be really good this year. I think they already have the defense. Now you're bringing Rodgers back into the mix. And, last year, the Jets had a lot of Super Bowl talk, but heading into the season, I think there was some skepticism about it because they did not have the offensive line that, that you need to have a championship team. This year, they brought in Tyron Smith. They also traded for Morgan Moses from Baltimore. So I feel a lot more confident about the offensive line this year. And look, the 49ers have played in the NFC Championship game at least every single year. So I think the 49ers clearly are the team to beat in the NFC. I think this definitely could be a Super Bowl preview.
Well, we know the 49ers are going to get there. We just need the Jets to handle their business and meet the 49ers in New Orleans. I believe the Super Bowl's in New Orleans this year, Super Bowl 59 in February. So maybe this is just a preview, and we'll be talking to you in about 6 months here, John, about another matchup between the 49ers and Jets. Wouldn't that be something? That would be.
Well, I used to say this when like Adam Gase was here. I used to say it and it was a joke, and it's so different now that it actually could happen.
Well, look, if you could just go from maybe the worst quarterback play in the league to Hall of Fame level quarterback play, it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great analysis.
It might help you get there. I do want to see Aaron Rodgers stay healthy because I think this is a really interesting New York Jets team. And I actually picked them last year before the season to be against the 49ers I didn't even pick the Niners to get there. I did pick the Jets to get there. I got burned by the Jets, and I'm not even a Jets fan. So I know how Jets fans feel now. So I'm not going to try to hype these two teams too much. But
you got a taste of the heartbreak of being a Jets fan.
Yeah, exactly. I can appreciate it now.
All right. If the 49ers continue to look at Patrick Mahomes as the boogeyman, if there's anyone cocky enough to feel like they can go in there and just take down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I feel like it's Aaron Rodgers. So, we talked about keeping him in the pocket and whatnot. Man, just keep this guy healthy. Hopefully he plays the entire season so he can do a little heavy lifting for the 49ers.
Week 1 is going to have a lot of great action, but I think the game I'm most excited for has to be this Monday night game between the Jets and the 49ers. I think there's just so much to look out for. And for more on that game, more on that matchup, and more on the Jets and the 49ers, check out John Butchko over at Locked On Jets, Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker over on Locked On 49ers, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for us here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Week 1 will be coming at you every single week with our local experts on the Locked On Podcast Network as they give you the insights, the information, and everything you need to know heading into weeks of this football season. So be sure to stay tuned for what we have in store here. I'm Kevin Ostreicher, and we'll see you right back here soon on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.